I'm going to see if I can do a pre-roll thing here in less than a minute. This is My Good Bad Brain. My name is Jared Sleeper. This is a podcast about mental health and being a person. I'm a person. I have depression. I also have ADHD. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert of any kind, but I think everybody's an authority on their own experience. And so I talk to other people and myself on this podcast about how they get through, both objectively and subjectively. You know, like how they're doing, like subjectively, but also how do they do it objectively. You know what I mean? And hopefully we all fix our brains or, you know, get through this existence thing together. If you dig us, review us, preferably a good review, but anything that's passionate and true to you is fine. Also, check us out on patreon.com/myggoodbadbrain, which you can give money to the podcast. That helps it keep going and be alive, which is great. Also, there's some rewards. I draw little portraits and stuff of certain tiers in the style of the podcast because I draw those of everybody every week. Yeah, that's less than a minute. That sounds good. Let's roll the theme song and get into it. Bye. Welcome to My Good Bad Brain. I'm a normal person, so I'm insane. I've got depression and ADHD, but I'm doing better since I medicated me. I'm still not always sure whether I exist or what being a person even really is, but I figured out a long time ago that being alive is beautiful. Oh, man. Well, I tried that weird pre-roll thing. I don't know. We'll see if that sticks around. It's just the mood I'm in today. Hi, it's me, guys. It's Jarrett. And this is My Good Bad Brain, which lives up to its name pretty consistently. You know, bouncing all around in here. I've been busy, man. Been busy, and rhythms have been weird. You know, it's weird to, like, figure out a system that works for you, and then some other stuff kind of comes along, derails it, and then you gotta go, oh, damn, I gotta adjust my systems, I guess. The systems that were so helpful. Now I got this new job thing, which I'm grateful for, that I got on the agenda and things to do, but that's gonna change my schedule, you know? Suddenly, certain things that were really regulating for me before are... they take a little bit too much time now. Maybe they become a stressful thing. And so the practices must adjust. And I'm in the process of adjusting. I've also been doing a lot more like reading or, well, books on tape. You know what I mean? Which, by the way, this might be the practical advice for the week. Is like, there's this app called Libby. And I think there's also one called Overdrive. But it's basically local libraries on your phone. And so if you have a library card, like I live in Los Angeles, I have a Los Angeles Public Library card, which is, P.S., fucking insane. It's just the greatest thing ever. If you're not using your library, start using your library. But there's this Libby app. You can access all the ebooks and audiobooks that your library has from your app, from your phone, for free. It's like Audible, but for free. It's crazy. So, not Spawn, but anyway, Libby. And I've been using that to make my time in the car, like, or around working or whatever, a little bit more productive because I like to be learning stuff, you know, and I felt like I recently did something where I deleted I don't follow anybody on Twitter except for Metamucil and then D20 now because it's me and my brother's little company, but like because I thought Metamucil was the only thing like really helping me on there, and that's not totally true. Obviously there's some people that I love and I thought were funny and whatever, but for the most part the feed had become so useless, you know what I mean? Like, it just been such a drain, and I felt like I was just like, the world seemed so poisonous there, and that way of interacting with it in like 280 characters or less, or tweet storms, like these little, it was just like such an awful way to take in information. And the form itself, like, I think form does, affect function very much so. And the form of the smallness of it didn't make people more elegant. It made people more bombastic. You know, like, everybody has to have, like, I think the hope would have been, right, that, oh, you have a limited amount of characters. So what Twitter's going to be now is this place where people are writing haikus about existence and things are beautiful and distilled. But they're not. They're just like ragey or bombastic, or, you know, everyone has to have a take. The whole like hot take culture, takes, and it was just so toxic. And also, I was getting like dismayed by like how much I would say I saw this tweet, I saw that said, or like I saw this funny tweet, or this is this thing, and instead of like having my own thoughts. And so I was like, man, I gotta just purge this. Let's just take one distraction out of my life. So whatever. And in the meantime, and like on the flip side, I'm trying to like put more useful things in my brain. And that is where Libby, the Libby app, comes in on these audiobooks that I've been listening to. And I've been listening to one about ADHD and romantic relationships, or I think it's like ADHD and marriage, but it's just basically in romantic relationships that are serious. And damn, is it fucking useful. Who knew? Reading books about things that you may or may not have. Like, it's illuminating. I'm learning all this stuff about myself that I guess I knew forever, but having a way that somebody, like, here's one that I found really fucking fascinating, and I was like, this is a great way to describe my experience. They're saying ADHD brains have a non-hierarchical reception of the world. So where other people can, like, receive things and go, like, this is more important than this, and I can prioritize things, and I can focus on this and not pay attention to that thing. Like, if you have an ADHD brain, everything just comes in at once, and there's no sense of hierarchy. Like, every little distraction or piece of information is as valuable as the next. And I was thinking, like, how that gives me a lot of things I love about my brain and a lot of things that I don't, you know? Like, obviously, the inability to focus all the time, or the ease of distraction, or the lack of sense of how long things take. I used to say, like, I could lose a whole day making coffee. Like, making coffee can take a whole day. And that's true. Like, that happens all the time. That can be very frustrating. But also the poetry of that idea that, like, making a cup of coffee can take all day, or like the constant input of receiving my universe in this big, beautiful, vibrant way all the time is, like, electric and really lovely. And I'm grateful for that. And I don't know, the book is like, these books, learning, what am I saying? I'm like saying the most obvious thing in the world. Learning is good, which is a big theme of this pod today, I think, with Lisa Schwartz, who I adore. I met her years ago, also on My Music, and we just got along since then, and I just think she's wonderful. So I knew I wanted to talk to her on this, and the themes I wanted to talk to her about do come up, which were kind of like this, where does she get this sense of care that she puts out into the universe? She's very just caring to people in very practical ways. But that did come up, and I do kind of steer things sometimes about what I want to talk about. But with her, she came with this thing. It comes up later in the podcast. But basically just like approaching yourself and the universe with curiosity versus judgment. And that idea has been just sticking with me since we talked. I've said it a lot. I think I'm going to say it the rest of my life because, you know, binary systems are so useful, like, in thinking. You know what I mean? Like, they're not useful in actual approaching reality because nothing's binary, nothing, like, it doesn't help you. But being able to kind of, like, for me at least, categorize reactions broadly, like, you know, just like broadly saying, like, being nice versus mean, right? Being able to broadly categorize my reactions to things and go, am I reacting to this with curiosity or judgment, is so useful because most of the time it's judgment. Someone says something and you instantly have an idea of what that means, what it must mean, what it says about them, what it says about you, what they're saying about you. You're being accused or whatever. As opposed to, oh, why did they say that? Really thinking about that. Why did they say that? What does that mean? What could that mean? Asking them to expand on what it means, whatever. And especially with self-talk. Like, if you do something bad, like, I was talking to my therapist about it recently, realizing, like, how I have this reaction where, like, something, like, the thought is, like, oh, I'm trash. I'm just fucking trash. I'm a trash person. And if I don't not just do well on this, if I don't do the best version of this that's ever existed, then I'm trash. I'm fucking trash, and I should be killed and thrown out. And, like, you're like, what is that weird, judgy voice? I have to not fuck this up. I have to, or else. Well, if I instead of did it with judgment, I'd be like, whoa, is that true? Curiosity. Well, I guess that's not true. Are you trash? No, I guess not. I guess not if I think about it for like 2 seconds and don't just go with the judgment that I already, like, bypassed the curiosity. I've already figured it out. I don't know. And that's just self-talk with myself and others has been very useful. So that comes up. Lisa also talks about having OCD and some anxiety stuff and how she battles that. And that's really useful because I think there's a lot that even if you don't have diagnosed OCD or anxiety stuff, I think everyone can relate to. Just about kind of dealing with your comfort zones and the way she goes about. There's some wonderful stuff in here that she goes into about kind of like just making the choice that you have to push yourself through it. there's a great part. I just don't want to spoil it. It's a lovely talk. Pay attention. This stuff about pushing your boundaries, but also knowing the times to say like, this is too much for me today. Being gentle with yourself. Curiosity versus judgment. It's just a wonderful talk with a wonderful person, which, that's, I guess, becoming a theme of my Good Bad Brain. Okay. I think the people are wonderful and I learn a lot from them and I think it's great. It's like so fucked up to like your own material so much, I guess, but it helps me. What can I say? It's making my life better in tactile, practical, real ways week to week. You people are who listen, your feedback and your presence and these people I talk to, this is making my life better. Like, this is making me better. It's making me walk my talk and become healthier. And it's like, fuck, these like best practices, better practices, giving a shit about yourself, trying, learning about yourself, making choices to make changes, communicating with other people and empathizing with them and commiserating with them and sharing experience. Like, holy fucking shit, it works. I think. Anyway, let's get into it. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with the very wonderful Lisa Schwartz. Woo! Which is weird that you have the Hummingbird card right there.
Because what is the Hummingbird is pretty wild, right? Like, they're very spiritual and they're very magical, I think.
I think definitely they are. I don't know.
They move real fast.
The Hummingbird first showed up for me in my life. Like, I went on a date. It was like a Tinder date a long time ago. And I haven't hung out with the person since. I don't know. And we had a weird thing where like, we had a good time. Maybe we went out twice. I don't know. We had a good time. And I think we like made out a little and then we had a sleepover, but we didn't do anything more. Just like we ended up I think we were both drunk and whatever. And they said at one point, we got on this as a dumb topic about like, cause I like the spirit animal stuff. Has anyone ever like said you are an animal? Like, do you have an animal that you get a lot? Cause I just think that's interesting. And cause I'm really into that and it helps me cope with certain things. And I've always had like a few of them, mostly like bear, like the Jer Bear thing or like a wolf or whatever. And I said that I get those things and she goes, you're a hummingbird. And I was like, huh? What? Like that felt very stupid to me because I was like,
I'm not a little bitch hummingbird.
Well, I'm not a little bitch hummingbird, but also like no one's ever said that. It's always something with teeth and fur and like, that like sniffs around your crotch and is like a psycho, like a dog. And she said something really lovely. I like wrote a poem about it and I've been doing this poem collection. I've been doing and she said something like, because you're, she said like, because you're beautiful and delicate and untouchable. And I was so fucking destroyed by that because it was like the first time in my life. Because I feel like especially, you grow up as a male, cishet male in America, whatever. And you're so like, there's things you have to be cool. Plus I meet her in this like courting phase. Plus there was a time in my life that was kind of dark and like, you're just out there looking for something to make you happy or okay. And to have somebody who, in that context too, go like, no, I don't think you're a big scary thing. In fact, you're this thing that's like elegant and precious and like, delicate. I think she said, yeah. And I was just so like destroyed in like a lovely way by that. And then I looked up more stuff about hummingbirds because I thought it was so interesting. And then hummingbirds kept popping up throughout my life. And they're really like, there's something in the, I did the math for the poem because I thought it was funny, but like the caloric need they have is so insane to like live. Huh. They have to eat like, it would be like the equivalent.
Because they burn through the energy.
Yes. It would be the equivalent of me, of like 175, 180 pound guy eating like something like 200 pounds of ground beef or something.
Damn,
like I did all the math. Maybe. Like, I don't know how many, probably. But I was like, I don't know. There's such weird animals. There's like, how did that creature become like evolve to be that thing that like to be still needs to be going a million miles a moment and is able to appear still in that constant motion and just their weird like tongue thing and their nectar thing. They're just such strange, and beautiful.
The sound they make.
The sound. What is the sound they make?
I think it's because of their wings. It's like a buzzing of sort.
Yeah. The buzzing. I feel like the buzzing, I relate to the buzzing a great deal.
Dude, you are a hummingbird.
I think also weird, like I just always avoided bird iconography or something. I just thought like birds, I don't know why. I had a stepdad who he was like loved birds. He was like an Audubon Society once upon a time, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, and I remember saying one time, like, I just didn't like birds. They're just like insects with feathers. And he was like, they're like insects with, he was like so upset about it. And I always thought that was very funny. And I don't really feel that way anymore, but there is something very alien, very like dinosaur about them, you know, like evolved from dinosaurs. They're very reptilian on some level.
Don't dinosaurs, now we know they had feathers?
Yes.
Which like fucks me up. That one
scarier,
fucks me up.
right?
But no one, it's so scary. Have you seen the pictures?
It's like it's like real life Big Bird. If Big Bird became like, but like would eat you.
It's terrifying. But I feel like no one like wants to like give into that theory now. So like, I don't think cartoons are going to like switch over and have that much better. Everyone's like, nah, this is the way we're doing it.
Well, I think it's because like you see like chicken. Well, like I guess hawks are cool and stuff, but chickens are so stupid, like in their sort of vibe that you're like, it's less like Tyrannosaurus Rex. It means like the king, you know, the king of tyrants
but this
or
is
something.
False. We're living on a false.
I know.
Under false pretension.
Some people, you know, a good lie is better than a bad truth to some people. I don't know. Do you have an animal that you identify with or that you get a lot?
No, but I've had animals like pop in.
And you've been leasebug for a while.
I've been leasebug, so I guess a ladybug. My dad just called me that growing up, and like that was my first AOL name, and now I'm stuck with it.
That's so funny.
That's literally
you're like AIM name.
Yeah,
I had some embarrassing AIM names.
We all have.
But some emails I've used are like still the same since I was like 13. Like the number 13's in there, and I'm like, well, I was 13, so
it's my lucky number now.
I've
had like animals. So that is like crazy. I go on this retreat every year with my mom in Arizona. It's to a spa, which sounds like frou-frou, and it is frou-frou, but it's a very spiritual place.
Yes.
And every time I'm there, I have like these weird, like, sort of like
you don't tell me what it is. What area is
places. It's outside of Tucson, so like 30 minutes outside of Tucson. So it's kind of like in the middle of just mountains.
Yeah, my grandma lives in Tucson. My grandma and my aunts live in Tucson now.
It's very... The energy there is very...
It's weird.
Yeah, dude, it's magical.
I was talking about Arizona. Arizona's weird because on the one hand, it's like politically got this strange cowboy vibe of like conservative weirdness, and they're a border state, so there's a lot of that. But then there's also a lot of like these kind of retreat spaces and like that sort of... my grandma, who's into like spiritual stuff like that, was saying people talk about New Mexico a lot for like vortexes, but there's like a lot more.
I want to go so bad.
Me too. But she said there's more in Arizona. Like there's like those...
It's the mountains, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a magical place, and I always have these like huge revelations, and they usually are based around animals that I see continuously on the trip and then I'll never see again.
Whoa.
So like I was going through a very difficult breakup, or it was right before I went through. I knew I needed to go through a breakup, but I hadn't done it yet. And I was walking down this path where everyone goes, but no one was there for some reason. So a very populated area in this resort. And two javelinas, dude.
Yes.
They're like crazy boar pigs.
Yeah, they look like pigs, but I think they're technically rodents, like the same family as guinea pigs or something like that.
They're horrifying. They're actually very scary.
In person?
They crossed like they teed right in front of me. And then one looked me straight in the eyes, and I was like, this is it. Like, this is the end. I'm dying. And he just like bored at me. I don't know. He was like, ah! And then I was like, ugh. And then they just like walked past, and I was like, what the fuck? And I looked it up, and like, I can't quite remember now because it was so long ago, but javelinas have something to do about like either telling your truth or you've been living in a lie. Something that basically like prompted me to like, I need to go through this. So then a year later, it took me about a year to get through the breakup and actually finally do it. You know how this goes. A year later, I was back at the same place. And I had just like gotten through it, and I was walking the labyrinth. They have a labyrinth there, which is like super powerful. And like I randomly like turn to the left, and I just see the tail end of a javelina like leave. And I was like, that was the end of that chapter and like that story. And since I've been back, I haven't seen one javelina.
Weird.
So that to me was just like, oh shit, this is like legit.
I do think that's so like there's something about the desert. I don't know. I went back to Chicago recently, and the Midwest is like fucking weird, I think. But the further east you go, where are you from originally? From out here?
I'm from here.
Yeah. So I'm curious how you feel about this, I guess. But like for me, coming from the Midwest and like the further east you go, it's like it's only a few hundred years, but it's a longer that people have been here. And also like the nature of the land is like more lush. There's like it's green, it's wetter, it's like. I was in this suburb where I grew up recently, and I was like, it would be easy to believe that there's nothing wrong in the world here, you know, as opposed to when you're in California and it's like wildfires and the drought's a real thing. Not to mention we're in like this major city that's on borders, so it's like the political stuff is very real. You feel like you're on the bleeding edge of like humanity and humans and what's going on versus this Midwestern thing where there's no problems. And I also thought it was weird. Like I went to Burning Man last year, like fell into going to it, and it's very embarrassing to like how significant it was for me.
Oh, I'm
in the
sure.
scheme of things.
That's what you hear from everyone.
Yeah, and there's like so much to. It's like everything's true. I say like Burning Man's like Paris. Like all the stereotypes are true. You know, like the good and the bad, whatever you want to find, you'll find there. But I think for me, a lot of it was just being in the desert for 10 days without a phone, and I think like the desert. So when you go west, like we're in this Western, it's less time that people have been here and it's been fought over too. But like, there's something about the West that still feels like this place to go for newer things or something like that.
Interesting.
And then with the desert specifically, because it's not a forgiving place that we've all carved out in existence. Like LA, like palm trees aren't supposed to be here. Like we put them, you know, like nothing's really supposed to be. It's this desert that Arizona's the same way, that there's like, I think like all the Bibles, right? Or the at least the Judeo-Christian Mohammedan ones, like they are all like in these 40 days in the desert, 40 years in the desert. It's this place that you go that like you speak to God or you speak to the devil or the burning bush talks to you. There's like something about being in the desert. And I don't know if it's just the power of narratives and being raised with like stories from the Bible or the Torah or whatever, and that you get it in your head about these biblical locations, like places of transformation are the desert, or if there is something to like the weirdness of the desert, like it's just you and
it evokes solitude for some reason. And something about the heat too. It's very like you just like sweat it all out. Yeah, there's something very desolate about it. And maybe it's the plants, the plant life, because there really isn't. It's very desolate.
Yes. And very alien feeling.
Like you're on Mars.
Yeah, definitely
totally.
like you're on Mars. And also like just the plants that are there are such like, you know, Joshua trees are so Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
Or cholla or like ocotillo, like these weird spiky, I don't know, it just feels very, even the javelina is like an interesting, it's like an animal. I'm always struck when you see animals, like there's antelopes or something in Texas, I think, and they look like something off the Serengeti. Like it's strange to be in a place where like you've lived in the United States your whole life. You know about like mountain lions and bears and wolves and eagles. And then you come across this weird animal that you're like, I've never even heard of this animal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Desert
Discovery.
guys.
Like
Desert.
places of like self-discovery.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's also just like anytime you go away, if you can put your phone away and like sit in yourself, especially like when I go on these retreats, like that's what it's for. It's like to literally recharge and just like sit with yourself, which is like a horrifying thing. I went last year by myself to this thing. I spent, I think it was like a week or 4 nights, 5 nights by myself.
Right.
It's an interesting experience.
Yeah. That is, do you talk much? Were you like quiet a lot?
It wasn't like one of those like you have
Silent,
to be quiet, but I was quiet with myself. I mean, I live by myself and I do a lot by myself, but to be on vacation, quote unquote vacation with yourself, it definitely like highlights like your insecurities or like my anxiety was very much highlighted because I had no one to bounce my energy off of. Like I had to sit in my. Does
that help you, the other people, to bounce the anxiety? Do you think that like
think
disperses
so. I mean,
it?
it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable when I'm with someone that I'm comfortable with.
Right.
Just making sure. My mom is a shopping fiend and she's like sending me pictures. Yeah. I think I have a lot of social anxiety, which doesn't mean I'm not. Like, I'm fine talking to people. It's more like being in public places by myself specifically scare the fuck out of me and like really trigger me. So
what's
when I'm
the
traveling,
fear?
It's so absurd. It really is so absurd. And like, I can trace it back now, but like, I'm so afraid of something happening to me in public. I'm afraid I would rather pass out in my car
like
by
violent?
myself.
Like physically violent?
I'm afraid of, like, I feel like not violent. Like I'm not afraid of someone attacking me. It's more like me like getting sick or me like passing out. It's like so absurd. And I don't.
Is it like an embarrassment or a vulnerability like physically?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
It's like it's a lack of control. So if something happens to me in public, it's an embarrassment thing and it's a lack of, like, I have no control. Whereas like if it happens in my house, at least like no one's here and it's so fucked. It's so fucked.
Do you mind? I'm gonna use that as like a little thing to like, I'm gonna try out this new thing for this thing. Was like, I thought just with this pod, because I like these freewheeling things and we're going to keep it fairly freewheeling because I always like learn so much just from someone's personal experiences or whatever. I think we all have a lot to learn from each other, but I wanted to try to like draw in some like, current studies and things going on so we can keep learning about ourselves and blah, blah, blah. So I found just on the idea of control, like having control over what happens to you in public or what you experience, and being triggered. I found this article that was like recently published, August 1st on like I think it was psychology.com, whatever. There's a study that came out about trigger warnings and whether they like help or harm. I'm going to read a little bit of this. Okay, trigger warnings or brief statements that warn about potentially upsetting content are on the rise on college campuses, with 51% of professors reporting that they now use them. And just so, I mean, everybody pretty much knows what it is, but a trigger warning, for instance, might be issued before assigning literature that includes content depicting sexual assault or graphic violence because it is believed these topics may trigger or cause substantial anxiety for students who have experienced past trauma. So there's like a debate, I think, that happens a lot, like anecdotally about like, oh, but is this bad for, I had to read fucked up things and that helped me be better or blah, blah. So basically the study they did, this is a major debate about the effectiveness of trigger warnings. Do they give a useful heads up to content that may be harmful to those who have experienced trauma? Or do they limit free thought and undermine academic freedom, as the University of Chicago has told its freshman class? Can they hurt mental health by encouraging students to avoid difficult topics, as psychology professor Jonathan Haidt has argued? Okay, so this recently published Harvard study asked these questions. The researchers Benjamin Bullitt and Peyton Jones and Richard McNally, those are quite the names. They had participants read passages from literary texts like Moby Dick or Crime and Punishment. But before reading these passages, half of the participants received a warning that read, "Trigger warning, the passage you are about to read contains disturbing content and may trigger an anxiety response, especially in those who have a history of trauma." So half the people got the warning, half the people didn't get the warning. The researchers found that being exposed to trigger warnings caused participants to rate both themselves and others as more vulnerable to developing PTSD. Trigger warnings led to no self-reported differences in anxiety between the two groups overall, but for participants who already held the belief that words cause harm, trigger warnings led to an increase in anxiety. Yeah.
So it's kind of doing the opposite effect.
Yeah, they're saying, so I should point out a point that was made by this people, and also the authors of the study addressed this limitation in their paper. Basically, it tested general populace. It didn't test specifically people who have PTSD.
Sure.
Which Peyton Jones said on Twitter, who was one of the authors, the researchers plan to do a follow-up study involving participants with trauma histories. But the authors have also proposed that trigger warnings may be counterproductive for individuals with PTSD because they encourage people to avoid trauma, which sounds like obvious. But research suggests that avoiding trauma, while beneficial in the short term, can worsen symptoms in the long term. One of the most effective treatments for PTSD is a prolonged exposure therapy, which encourages repeated exposure to triggers so that patients can get used to them and no longer find them upsetting.
Right.
So really interesting. And there's like more stuff about like, obviously the importance of this study is very limited by the fact that it doesn't specifically ask people with PTSD if the trigger warnings help or hurt overall. And that, if they do find that in the follow-up study that like for people with traumas, it really helps a lot, then that would be enough reason to keep doing them. But I thought that was like interesting that like this thing can happen where we're like, it reminds me of like, with babies, like toddler kids. If you ever see like a toddler, because toddlers like seem like they're made out of rubber, and sometimes they'll just face plant or do like things that look really scary. Like
they're fine until their parents freak out.
Yes.
Yeah. Because they're being like, a seed has been planted. That's what this sounds like. Like reading the trigger, you're already like thinking like you're going to be triggered. So you're like you're already pre-ready. Like now you're looking for the trigger.
I mean, how do you
I don't know. The world is so precious right now. And I think everyone's just trying to like figure out how to navigate it. So like, I think the intentions behind trigger warnings are good.
Totally.
And also it covers people's asses. So like,
See, that's weird though, right? That we all have this like litigious sense about like, well, I just want to make sure I cover my ass. Because to me, it's something I think about a lot with like, being like who I am in the world, like a straight cishet white male, whatever. Like I feel like I recognize a lot of people who learn the right words and the right language, but never talk about the things that are fucked up about them or like that might be weird. And so we never really work them out. And so when people are just worried about covering their ass rather than actually connecting or figuring things out or being like, these are pre-held feelings or notions that I have about, people different from me or whatever. On a personal level, like I feel like facing my fears was really important throughout my life, but I also think it was important that it was my choice to face my fears, that I recognized I was afraid of something, or like you're talking about, like you go out and you had this anxiety about public aloneness. Like I'm just, you said something like living alone that triggered some stuff for, not triggered in this sense, but like made me think of, in my own personal life, like I hated being alone. I came from a family like four kids in our family growing up, and everyone's on top of each other, small houses. I still remember like that when we lived in a house with one bathroom. So in the morning you just leave the shower running and be like next, and everybody, running out and that kind of thing. And then I had a girlfriend that I was in all this stuff, and I had a roommate. And I remember the first time I was like in LA in the Valley. I think I was like 21 or 22, and my girlfriend had to go to her job. My other buddy went to do some work or something, and I was alone in the house. And I was like, I had a moment where I was like, I think this is the first time I've literally been alone in maybe my whole life, or like, I don't know, but I couldn't think of a time that there wasn't someone else around. And I had a little bit of a freak out since then. I mean, I'm 32. It's like more than a decade later. Facing my aloneness was very important to me and has become something I cherish, And I guess what I'm just saying is like in personal development of ideas of facing trauma, facing fear, facing anxiety, I'm really happy that I've done that. And I do think it's all made me better, but I do also think it was important that I picked it.
Yeah, you did it on your own.
It wasn't like somebody coming and going like, you're going to get over this, you face,
Yeah, but I also feel like everyone like works on a different, maybe some people need that. So like I have a therapist who is all about like, when you're ready to uncover this thing, you're ready. Like, even though she like probably wanted to get in there and pull it right out, and she probably saw like what the actual issue was, but it's like, when you're ready for this. Whereas like another friend of mine who has a very different energy and sort of personality than me, her therapist is the type, and she needs the type that like calls her out on shit. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just a matter of like,
yeah, I think for me it becomes like, I think I can smell, so at least in my perception correctly, like whether something's performative or not. And the kind of like tough love performative thing, I often just turn off immediately, because it's the same thing as people who are like I used to think about like acting classes and improv classes or something, but especially acting classes in LA. Like I still do this like bit for myself or sometimes of like the acting class teacher that's like tough. They're so good. They're just really honest. They're really tough. And like that, there's something in like some actors that like love to be just shit on by like a fake guru.
This is all goes home back to your childhood. And like, it's the same thing with relationships, the type of people that you choose, how you interact with people, the people you surround yourself with. It's like some people need the fucking dick in their life. Like why? We don't know.
It does feel like there's something about trauma that wants to like if you don't name a trauma, you don't realize you're acting from a place of trauma, it will continue to manifest itself in your life. And I don't know why, you know what I mean? Like the way like the whole idea that like people who are abused become abusers so often or sometimes, that like there's something about needing to continue
this pattern
itself until you work it out or until you notice it.
Until you recognize it or work it out or want to make a change.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people aren't self-aware enough to notice it. And also there's comfort in what you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yes.
There's comfort in what you know. Mm-hmm. And it's also like change is really a lot of work. Like breaking through those things is really, really hard. Even just getting to the therapist's office is hard, right? Yeah. And then uncovering those things that you know deep down are in there, those traumas or whatever, like being willing to actually go there and address. I mean, that is very hard to do. Can't take that lightly.
You were talking about like things people don't tell you, like, hitting 30, hitting like around that age, like that you're going to go through. Like, is there some of that stuff? I don't mean to like cue it up so
I think
neatly.
so.
But
I think because for me to get into an actual healthy relationship, like I've had relationships along the way and they're all great and I'm not shitting on them, but like I think the reasons why a lot of them haven't worked have been because of me. And I think the issues that I was having were things I wasn't willing to address. And
did you, at the time, did you think it was the other person?
No, I think it was a combination.
Yeah.
It's just the way I would interact with someone or how I would, it's just like the habits that you have, and you see it amplified when you're in a relationship,
right?
Because there's nowhere to hide. Like it is affecting the other person and what they're doing is affecting you. So I got to the point where I turned 35 and I'm like, well, I'm not married yet. Why? Not that you have to, right? But like, why am I not in a relationship that I could like really, really honestly see for the rest of my life, or at least
And
to
is
like
that something you always
with?
wanted, or you just felt like you needed?
Just like I think I was just comparing myself to other people my age, which you're not supposed to do, but whatever, that's human.
Yeah, of course.
And it's like, okay, well, if I really want to get to the core of who I am and uncover these issues and like really be able to have a proper deep connection with someone, I got to unpack this shit. So I think that comes.
Do you think that
age.
proper deep connection thing is something that humans should like, that you need? I'm not. I mean, I'm asking this sincerely. Like, I'm not teeing this up to be like, well, no, anybody can do whatever they feel like is good for them. But like, sincerely,
I don't know.
Like, I think there's something about when you're like being socialized correctly. Like, it helps if you have siblings, but if you don't have siblings, it's like humans have to be in social connections to each other to be well. Like, if you were just isolated your whole life, you'd be fucked up. So if we can hold that to be true, then it could be on the table. Like, is it necessary? Do you think it's a necessary part of the human
to have
life
a pair,
cycle, to have a pair, or to have
pair.
you said I don't know how you just said it a second ago. You said like a deep, honest, like a deep bond with another person. Like you said you weren't able to do that until you could like clear some stuff out. Do you think that thing is important in itself?
I don't know. I still don't know. And I think that's part of like my crisis of this age is like so many people are just doing it, but I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Although I do know I am significantly happier now. But that doesn't mean because I'm in a relationship. I think it's just because I found a partner that like I can have open communication with and I can share like things with and bounce ideas off with without judgment. So like I've been in relationships where I haven't been happy. So it's not about being in a relationship. It's just about, I don't know.
It's about
I don't know
being
what it's about.
seen or maybe less being seen, because the way the terms you're using are like, you can communicate with openly without judgment. I think there might be something about not the part of it being even received, but the part of like just being able to put whatever is inside of your head out and then not have it be immediately roasted or eradicated or poked or prodded. Like, just
but do you need a partner for that? Because also I think maybe I'm happy because I'm finally not judging not always, but I'm working on not judging myself. So is this just a byproduct of like, maybe. But it's also fun because I can like have a cute boy to kiss?
Well, because if you have this person though who doesn't judge the things that you're used to having be judged and that you judge yourself, I wonder if there's an aspect of like you're having somebody else demonstrate for you not judging you. Like, you know,
that's interesting.
If you meet somebody else who doesn't judge the things that come out of you and actually loves them, if you're like, whoa, wait, I'm allowed to do that too? Someone else can do it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe.
It's also just like life is really hard. It's hard to navigate through.
Yes.
This is why there's religion and all these things, right? You know, even spirituality, all this like woo-woo shit that we're into, everyone grasps onto something. And so, I mean, a partner is just kind of the same thing where it's like, how do we like, let's navigate through this together, especially in this time. It's like nice. And that's what friends are for too. And that's what family's for. But I don't know. It is interesting. I never thought I was like that girl that was like, I'm going to have a wedding and like, that wasn't on my like
Do you
list.
want a wedding thing?
Dude, that seems expensive as fuck.
I agree. Every time I think about like wedding, I gotta go to another one. This is the year that weddings have kicked in for me. Like I've gone to 2 or 3, and now I'm like, it sounds so fucking stressful to me.
They all kind of become the same.
I just don't. You know what I mean? Like I don't. Why? The idea that you'd have to go perform. Like I don't like doing pinatas.
I don't want to be like at the center of the attention.
No, I like pinatas are like fun for some people. Whenever I have to do a pinata, I just don't do it. I'm uncomfortable with doing a violent thing blindfolded in front of people. Like this past weekend, there was one. I didn't do it. I just go, no, I don't like to do pinatas. No, thank you. But like, there's something in the same vein for me. I can't. It's like. There's something
everyone's watching you.
Yeah, and it's like there's something everyone's watching it. Maybe it's because I do like violent sports or something like that. But I'm like
the idea that everyone's to really break that little fucker open.
Yeah, and also just like the weird like if you watch like nature documentaries and see animals like kill each other, you know, like hunt like a lion hunting a wildebeest or something. There's something very fascinating about it and very like beautiful and life cycle and strange, but also like vulnerable. Like there's something like pornographic about it.
Oh, totally.
To like see real violence and not like boxing between people.
Right.
And there's something about like anytime I see people do piñatas, something comes out of them. Sometimes it's not like crazy, but it is like I can't see, so I've taken a thing away, and I want to break this sincerely. So they're sincerely swinging violently, like blindly in front of them while someone's tricking them. And it makes me very uncomfortable, you know, like while someone's going, oh, and like moving it while they're, and I'm like, someone's going to get caught on a backswing who's just trying to have a good time.
I actually have a piñata story for you. Because I used to work as a birthday party entertainer, which meant I was a clown a lot of the times. So I went to this like one, and you would just like get the address and go. Like,
do you mean like a literal clown? Like you would like a nose and you'd be a clown, or like or like figuratively, like you were being a princess, but you were like being a clown?
I was a fucking clown with a red nose, like a lot. But I like tried to be cute. I like wore pigtails, but it was like horrific. And people would just call me clown, like I didn't have a name. Just like clown. And then you
like
get
the parents and stuff.
Yeah, just like clown.
Clown.
No, yes, correct. Oh. So degrading. So like, and you would just get an address and a costume. Like that was it at a time. Like no information. So you just like show up and like hope for the best. But like this one time I went like, you go everywhere in LA. I mean, I've been everywhere, to like the richest people to the poorest people. I've done parties on like cement slabs. You know what I mean? So this house was like, it was like a all Spanish speaking party, and they were very lovely to me, except when it came to the piñata time. So it was like this very small backyard, and everyone was like crammed in. Like there was a lot of fucking people in there, and all these kids running around, and like, so it's time for the piñata. So I like stand there because I'm like kind of hosting this party. There's two guys up on like, they had like concrete walls in the backyard instead of fence. So their guys are standing on like opposite sides holding the piñata, and they're doing like this, and they have some song in Spanish for the piñata, and I can't like tell you it because I don't remember, but it like, you know, has a good rhythm, and they sing it. And so like the grandmas are all sitting in folding chairs and everyone's doing it, and the kids are swinging. It's like chaos in my memory. And I'm dressed like a clown. I'm this like little blonde white chick.
Was it hot out?
It was always hot out. You know?
Just sweating under like clown makeup.
Oh my God. And I'm just miserable. I'm like, so they're doing it. And then at one point the kid swings the thing back and hits me so hard in the stick, in the stomach. And literally, like in my memory at least, everyone turns, points, and laughs, including all the grandmas. Like, just like, and I'm just like, oh, this is like the worst thing that could have, like the grandmas were pointing at the little sweet.
I mean, that is funny to imagine. Like you're literally a clown getting hit with a stick. Like that's the most medieval like humor. That's awful.
This is like what they used to do back in the day.
A little child
swung that stick and like I just remember seeing like the grandmas sitting on the little sweet grandmas who were previously like you know singing this sweet song, laughing at me. Anyways.
No, that's really weird. That's very dark. That's a very dark memory.
So I don't like piñatas either.
It's like there's a part in that's like that part in Billy Madison or whatever where the clown dies or like falls over and he's like, you know, and he sings later and he's like, but you thought that I was dead. He's like, I just got head trauma. It's fine. Like, I don't know. That's so weird, man. That's so weird. I was thinking a lot about the idea of a jester recently, like that, like throughout history, and that like I don't know. Someone said one time like because I like love Bill Hicks and like those comedians that like do like philosophy and like they get just like they're just ranting at some point. I thought Hannah Gadsby's I think it's her name, Nanette, that thing on Netflix is kind of like in this vein.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, but really I hear great things.
Where they just like tell the truth. But this idea that like if you're gonna tell the truth, you better make people laugh because otherwise they'll kill you. And like throughout history, like prophets, like always get assassinated, always get killed for like saying the truth. But if you can say the truth and then just be like, I'm just a comedian though, or you say it and it makes people laugh, like then it's okay.
Yeah.
And like the idea of like the fool. I think I was thinking about it in the context of like life coaches and this consistent joke that like there's no life coach that has their life together. Like,
sure. Yeah.
But that actually makes sense to me. Like we have this like insane idea, like look at sports. Like the coaches, the people who are the best coaches are not the best athletes.
It's like acting coaches.
Yes, acting coaches, but like basketball coaches, weightlifting coaches, like gymnastics coaches, they can't do what their people do, but they spent their life observing and practicing how to affect.
And they know how to communicate.
And we go, okay, so they're the best at that. But then if you apply that to like really personal social stuff, right? So then that's like the life coach thing to me. It would be like, of course, a life coach can't fucking operate in their own life. They're so overwhelmed by seeing the strings, like in the best version of it, right? This is the same as a jester who can say the truth to the king and not get his head cut off. Is like you are so capable of seeing how everything is connected that you can say to other people, yeah, obviously your trauma is this, and you need to do this, this, and this, and then things will be fine because you can see like the blueprint lines through the air of how society and people work. But you can't apply it to yourself because that alone is so overwhelming. You're like, what, you want me to then go do this? No. Like you can come consult with me and I'll be like a weird witch on the edge of town who like their hair's always all crazy and they smell bad. But like I can tell you the truth. It's just I'm so overwhelmed with the truth. I don't know. I think that about people with kids too. Like people who are like not good parents or like bad to their kids. And then like people who don't have kids are like, man, people are really not nice. You got to be this way or that way. And then people are like, you try it. You don't have kids. I'm tired. Screw you. But you're like, don't you think like you're in it? You're emotionally invested. You can't see clearly what's right in this situation. You are tired. You are going crazy.
It's the same with like talking to friends about relationships, like,
yes,
and giving them advice. But then it's like really hard to fucking turn around and do it on yourself.
It's just a lot of parents are in really abusive relationships with their children. Not like literally, but like really codependent, really toxic.
Children sounds exhausting.
Do you want to have kids? Do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah.
See, again, like I feel like I'm supposed to know all this stuff at this age, and it sounds really difficult.
It sounds really like, to me, I think it's weird that we are all supposed to universally as organisms go, oh, great. Someone has a kid or say, congratulations, that's so great. Like you're supposed to universally, and it feels like that's fading a little bit. I feel like in the culture of people. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you watch movies or TV and it's like a trope of movies and TV and stories that someone's pregnant. Everyone's like, oh, wonderful. But like, I don't have that reaction instinctively at all. I think like humans are a virus and there's too many of us already.
Also,
and
like,
why are you doing
that
this?
sounds expensive. And also our world is a mess right now.
I have one friend who said like, when he finds out somebody has a kid or they're having another kid, he immediately just goes, oh, you're rich. Like you just got yourself an accessory that's going to cost you like an extra $100,000 a year or whatever, to send it to school and take care of all the things and blah, blah, blah. And
yeah, but then there's a lot of people that don't have
exactly
the resources to do it, and it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know how my parents did it. I mean,
I don't know. Times have changed. I
think times have changed.
Yeah.
I think it's like not crazy to feel that way. I mean, just think about like the population having doubled since like the 70s. Like when you look at like population maps of the humans in the world over history and how weirdly it's just like spiking up all of a sudden. I don't know. That feels like it adds in too, where I'm just like, I don't know. I guess I went through a phase where I felt like very biological, like, let's make some kids.
Your clock was ticking.
It felt that way. Like my late 20s, there was like a really weird, I remember just like a smallish window of like, we should just get someone pregnant. We should do that. It did not like in
I'm
a
glad
gross,
that passed.
not in like a real way, not in like a without them knowing or something like that. But you know what I mean? It was like an instinct to like breed.
Well, I think that's how we're built.
I think so too, right?
Yeah, we are.
It's weird. I'm so glad I feel like I really dodged the kid bullet. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
then like I have a really close relationship with my mom, and I'm like, this is a special relationship.
I know. I love my siblings. I love my nephew. My sister had a baby, and he's amazing. I just think there's I don't know, the weird instinctive, like that's a good thing and that's a thing that should be done and that's how you'll be fulfilled is like I don't know, man. I don't think that.
But it's okay to think outside of that norm.
Yeah.
And decide for yourself. But then it's okay then if you turn around and like decide, oh, I actually do want that, and not feel like guilty because you're like following what everyone else is doing. You know what I mean? I feel like that's what I'm battling now. It's like, okay, I've been so adamant about like, fuck marriage, fuck babies, Now that I'm like in a relationship that like feels correct, I'm like, oh, but I could
Yeah.
But like, I'm not that person, you know. It's like,
that's
just like
interesting.
circling around yourself. It's just like trying to live in the moment and do.
That made me think. It's earlier. I had this thought. And I was thinking about the importance of the partner thing that you were talking about. I do think, especially if you're like us, if you feel like a big mess and you're not really sure what your reflection is, you're not really sure who you are. Especially if you have like anxiety or bad thoughts about yourself, maybe you're a bad thing in the universe, a bad person, whatever. Like, I come to rely a great deal for my sense of reality on the visions other people hold that I trust. And especially, I mean, I think all of us are really dominated by narratives, but I think people in art especially are like, you're dominated by narratives, like story. What's the story of my life? What story am I living out? Who am I? And what's the story of me? Blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it can be very hard to get a positive one. And if you find somebody else who gives you a positive vision of yourself, like the Hummingbird thing, or like somebody who doesn't judge your shit and actually really likes it and really loves it, thinks it's, or sees better things in it than you have heard or could see. I don't know. I think a lot of my trusted group of people they're people who you trust to like hold visions of you that are true in your mind. Like they won't like just blow smoke up your ass, like for whatever their purposes are that they want your approval, but who do offer you a vision of yourself as something maybe better than you are. Like this is actually maybe related to the trigger warnings and the facing your fears thing and blah, 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 and the tough love thing. Some people like love the tough love thing. I you know, and that's like our whole system is set up with that. Like the toughest situation in school and training and testing, the best people will rise. Competition is always the right thing. But I think really sincerely, like, I know I do my best work. I am most realized, whatever, when I am given space and trust. And a big part of it is belief. If someone says like they really believe in me, they know something good is going to come out of me, then magically it will. Like, whereas if they go, you can't fucking, you know, that's like the typical American like vision of like, you'll never do it. And then you'll be like, and then the person goes like, I'll show them. And they rise to the top. And then the coach or whatever is just like,
I don't thrive like that.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
And that story, I think of like how many people are in our schooling system and our stuff are like left, I mean, how much is lost to society by not creating space and safety and encouragement instead of like challenges to overcome that will give us the strongest and best. You know, so I don't know, in relationship and the people you put in your life or who resonate with you or you stick around with, like when I think I am 100% certain I'm a better person because other people in my life have told me they think I'm a better person than I am.
Oh, they're vision boarding for you.
Yes. Them holding and presenting a vision gives me something to be like, I can be that. I can.
That's beautiful. That's why you got to surround yourself with good friends and stuff. Like I
know, but do you think that is like part of your whole like the thing about like finding a relationship that works for you?
I think, you know, when they're like, they make me a better person, like all these things that sound so cheesy, like actually I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Like I haven't been this happy in probably ever.
Do you think being happy makes you a better person?
I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't know.
So. I haven't thought about it till you said that. But I think we do have a thing of like smart people aren't happy is like kind of a thing in our culture, you know, like the whole like funny people are negative and they pessimistic because that's like where a lot of humor lies and seeing how shitty things are, and only a sucker, only somebody stupid enough to like not see global warming or whatever could be happy. But I kind of think like in my experience and the experience of seeing people around me, like when people get happy, they do more good. Like they spread that happiness. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's Pollyannish.
Well,
I think it's
it's because your actions then are coming from like a real positive place. Like you're walking through life with like good intentions instead of poor.
Yes. I feel like that's like self-love is hard for people to grasp because it still sounds like I've finally been able to verbalize to myself, like really trying to say like self-love isn't having a crush on yourself. It's not being like everything they do is so great and enchanted and I love it. It's like holding a space for loving yourself. But that like, it makes me feel like what we're talking about, it is incumbent upon us if we do want to be a positive force in our communities, in our families, in our worlds, whatever, to become happy.
Yeah.
Because like, if you're unhappy, you just like kind of fuck shit up more.
Yeah.
That's weird. It kind of like makes it easier, I feel like, for my mind to think about like, I have to make myself happy. I have to do things to be happy because otherwise I'm just going to be a destructive force.
But that's such a basic need. And that's like nice to be able to verbalize it that way instead of like, I need to like unbox all this bullshit and stuff. It's like the main goal is like, I want to be happy. So how do I get there?
Right.
And some people will get there in different ways.
It's like, it's very ironic and hard to grasp. I feel like in our like puritanical, whatever, to like try to, because it sounds selfish to like try to be happy. So, to my brain, it's still on some level hits me as like, who do you think you are? I mean, I'm past that, like but I'm just saying that's common.
Thing, right? Yeah. But also people like happiness, like people could be like, well, I'll just get wasted and then I'll like feel happy for the moment. It's like, no, we're not talking about that kind of like quick happy. We're talking about like actual like.
Right.
What?
Well, like joy, like we're talking about like joy and generosity and kindness and like a celebratory, like, it's interesting. We were chatting about this briefly earlier, but like the culture of the internet that like, as we like, you've been very involved with that over the inception of it. Like if somebody like someone we know will write a book eventually about like this weird 10-year period of like the start of this new YouTube thing.
Right.
But that like, we both recognize a pattern that like what's popular is this idea of drama. Yeah. And it feels kind of nasty sometimes.
It does.
Both in like nasty in the sense of cruel or whatever, that kind of a thing, having an object it needs to like laugh at, but also nasty in the sense of like kind of gross to me, like nasty. Like, do you know what I mean? Like there's something
it's like
about
why people like reality TV. It's like weird drama, like, which is the same on the internet. Like people just like I was telling you, like my videos that are titled things that like are like depressing or sad, like do so much better than like I'm happy.
No, yeah, of course. I wonder, like part of me totally understands that. Like I love gossip, but I don't love, and that sounds like funny to say because I think it's like a vice of mine or whatever. But like I've realized it's not, the gossip instinct that I have is not one about, and maybe this is how a lot of people feel when they come to like, drama, nastiness, whatever. But like the gossip feeling is not one of like shitting on someone, tearing someone down, destroying. It's just a love of drama in the sense of like plays and stories and narratives and human beings doing human being stuff and their relationships and their loves and their hates and the way they behave from petty places or
it's like, a character study, right?
Yes, that's fascinating. And also it's just a beautiful like human life cycle thing to like all our dirty parts and our clean parts and all that stuff. So I like that, and I understand that people would go like, oh, and
there's a connection like I feel like that,
right? So
it's interesting to see it,
but it's weird. I don't know, it feels like there's this thing on the internet, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about like there's also this weird culture of the internet that's like meant to be protective and supportive and like yes queen, like oh great, whatever.
Yeah.
But something about it feels like people will just want to take part. I'm having difficulty verbalizing this because it's an emerging thought as we're talking.
This is just me in general. Your difficulty is like me in general now trying to navigate.
Well, it's like this feeding frenzy occurs. It's like where it's like if you put the sad, fucked up thumbnail about like you're unhappy, it allows other people to. Oh my God, I just thought of something so dark and weird. I listened to this podcast, this history podcast about it's the hardcore history. When I mentioned it here before, I just like love this podcast, and they had one episode called Painfotainment, and it was about the history of public execution and torture, basically.
Whoa.
It's really fascinating. Like one of the most fascinating things in it is like basically he says this thing, if they had let the popular opinion of like people into, if they had let them have their way and let them decide like, oh, should we keep it, never would have gone away. Like people like never stopped loving public execution and torture. Crazy. But one of the things, there's this one tale, and like, because they're talking about how these like different forms it took, like, because it would become like this big event. People like come from all over to watch it happen, and they'd sell food, and everyone would hang out. Dark. And because like a lot of it throughout Europe wasn't just an execution, it was like it was called breaking on the wheel. Like they would put you on this wheel and they'd like break your limbs with bar. It was this whole thing.
Oh my God.
And there's this one story that he was talking about, like in this part, I think it was like in Germany, this part of Germany for a while, but it was like that public executions became, and the breaking on the wheel, the whole process of it became these oddly like spiritual events where the person who was being tortured to death would be repenting as they were being tortured, and they would like call out Bible, like call and response, like Bible, like scripture or hymns, and people would sing it back to them, the crowd and the person, and people would like weep, and they would and it would become this big spiritual, like through this, like almost Jesus stuff, like through this person's torture and death and the things they're going through and their salvation at the end of their life. We're all experiencing this thing as like a village together, that I'm like, damn, I wonder if that's some of this weird instinct towards drama, like someone self-immolating online. They're going through their shit, whatever. And then we all get to go like, we're with you. And oh my gosh, I feel this, your pain resonates with my pain.
Yeah.
And we all have so much pain, but like by us getting to tell you, you're going to get through your pain. But the weirdness of like, that's a beautiful concept. But when it becomes like, I need content every week.
Yeah.
So people are just like, how can I get more fucked up things so we can all, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like creating a whole factory where we can manufacture not like true drama of a story, not true a true thing happening, but like, how can we manufacture pain, like redemptive pain stories for each other?
Ooh.
Maybe.
That's crazy.
I don't know.
But that's reality TV too.
Yeah. But the strangeness of that with reality TV, because you see people then like, you see this on YouTubers also. Like I remember the first, even early days of YouTubers, whatever, like people, I still think it's weird. Some people are better at it than others, but like the strangeness of like, are we all just winking and nodding going like, we know this isn't a real person doing human behaviors? Or is there like a whole generation of people who like can't tell the difference between the, hey guys, and I'm on YouTube and this thing happened and it's crazy, who can't tell that they're being sociopaths? Do you know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of YouTubers who like, I think a lot
of people that do it don't know the difference.
They don't know. That's crazy. I think that is true.
Yeah. I don't know. And I think that about like, so I actually like watch more reality TV than I do YouTube.
Yeah.
So like this is why I just keep bringing it up, because I'm fascinated, because I'm watching Big Brother right now, which is like a fascinating character study.
Well, which is hardcore what we're talking about. Like, because that is true. Like reality TV is where you first started seeing this thing. YouTube probably couldn't have come about if not for reality TV.
Yeah.
But this like performative humanity where you're like definitely not being a person, and you're not a good enough actor to fake it.
But that's what's crazy to me. It's like, they kind of are the best actors, but are they like, yeah, it blows my mind, these people, because it's like, you can't write this shit.
Well, I think about actors sometimes, like certain actors are like better at being human than me. Like in the sense of like, there's moments, I can't remember the last one I saw, but I remember you see something and they perform a human behavior on screen that you're like, they're more human than I'm human in this moment. And that if you then feedback loop that you've witnessed a way to be human and learned it, and then now you go out and try to do it in your life, but you're not as good at it. And then if you just take that cycle like a million times, that's like you get reality TV and YouTubers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this performative humanity, like they've learned how to be a human from people they saw on TVs or other screens, and then incorporated that. And so now they know how to like do the whole dance and music, song and dance of being a person going through things. But like you said, they don't even know that they're pretending.
I don't know. Now I just feel like we're really high. But yeah, dude, life is a trip. And I think it is all based around like death too, right? Like,
what do you mean?
Like, we have this like impending, like we all know it's coming. Mm-hmm. All of us are going to die.
Do you think about that a lot?
I'm not afraid of death, but I do love like true crime. Like I love it. And I like this idea of like ghosts and shit. But like, I ultimately like, what are we doing here? And like, we all know we're going to die soon. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, so it's interesting to see how we're all processing that. Do you know what I mean? Because in the end, that's what we're processing. Because we're like, well, what are we here to do? And that's what everyone says, right? What is my point? What's the point? What are we here to do? But the end of that is death. So what are we? What are we supposed to do before we die? It's all about death.
Like literally every moment to moment day is coping with this reality that it's going to turn off one day. I was thinking about this on the way over for some reason out of nowhere. Did you see the movie No Country for Old Men? Ever?
I feel like I probably slept.
I like it. It's a good movie, but you could.
I sleep through a lot.
Yeah, that's okay. It's a movie you could do that. It's got a vibe that's kind of that way. But one of the things I love, I know why, because I was listening to a podcast about script writing or something like that, and they were talking about these people were talking about how they really like indie movie kind of things that like they tried to write a movie that wasn't, but they love movies that have those ambivalent endings. And I love the ending of No Country for Old Men because it just ends. Like the narrative for some people, I assume is like it's not a very neat,
complete,
great, but it definitely has a start and a middle and an end. And then when it ends, it just ends almost like in the middle of a thought. I feel like it's like the end. You know what I mean? Like it just turns a black screen. And I was thinking, I don't know why. So it just resonated when you said that, but it resonated with me like, oh, that's dying, where I was like that. You're like, I take great comfort. I've said it here before. I take great comfort in this thing that like, I don't fear death either. The actual thing of it, like, a lot of it because Mitchell Davis, I think, said it on this podcast. Like, I don't know what happened before I was born, but I know I'm not afraid of it. It wasn't scary. It wasn't painful. It wasn't nothing about it was horrifying. So I'm just going to go back to whatever that was.
Yeah.
And that's so strange. But that in this time, in these three dimensions, it's really wild to think about literally everything that we do on some level is a response to coping with that idea that it's going to end.
Yes.
Even if it's like the little joys of like, I like my trash TV or I like this, whatever. I actually use it as a great comfort to me when I get too existential and weird, like is on my don't kill yourself list, reasons to stay alive, like coffee, right? And I say a lot, there's coffee in the morning. Like there's something about these tiny little things that again, compared to the grand infinite impossibility of death and life and things that like, but coffee is just undeniable. It's just good. I just love it. And you can get it at any time pretty much. And it's weird to think that all of our performative humanity are seeking out like is kind of like just nerve endings. Like, well, what makes you happy? What moves you towards happiness or away from happiness or something resembling happiness? You said something about like, things are comfortable, so you just keep going. You keep them because that, I think that about like habits in general, because then you add into this your organism. As far as your organism is concerned, whatever you're doing right now, if you are still alive, is working, and so it doesn't. Your biological imperative is not to change anything.
Sure.
So even if a habit is uncomfortable for you or makes you unhappy every day,
it's how you function.
If you're continuing to breathe and eat every day, then fine, it's fucking working. Don't try to change anything.
Yeah. That's why change is so fucking hard.
Yes.
Change is very hard. It's very scary.
Yeah, you have to like tell this thing that evolved over millions of years to stay alive that like I need to shift the system to something else.
Yeah.
And you have to like overcome that.
Yeah.
Which is hard. Sorry, I'm going off. We're like all over the place
Death.
a little bit. Death. No, but I just like appreciate that you brought it there because I think that that's like
well, that's what it is. So
very accurate.
My grandpa's 101 years old.
Damn.
His wife is 100, and they are living it up still.
What's their secret?
So this is his second marriage. So my grandma had passed and he has a whole nother life after her, but it's beautiful. They just have fun and they like, he still takes
the second marriage?
classes. I think they got married at like 80.
That's amazing. That's actually, I just like to know because like, I feel like my mom's having like second life after 50. That is like very great to hear about because we're so youth oriented, and even for us, even
oh my
like,
god, my mom's
like,
having a whole nother
20s.
Life right now too, and she like gets dressed up for her boyfriend and puts on heels, and it's the cutest thing I've ever seen.
That's really cute.
But my grandpa's 101, and I went to visit him, and he still takes classes at this like local little college. And I asked him because they talk very openly about death because they're 100 and 101, and all of their friends have passed, but they speak very like openly and very positively about it.
Really,
they're basically like they were talking about like if she passes first, this is what's going to happen. They say, we understand this is morbid, but this is just our reality now.
Yeah.
And so I turned to my grandpa and I asked him, I said, are you scared? Because they kind of opened it. We're so afraid to talk about death, especially with old people, right? You don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable and everyone's uncomfortable. But they opened the gate. So I was like, are you scared? And he said, no, I'm just sad because I really love my life. Fuck. He's like, I'm just not ready. And I'm like, you're 101 and you're not ready? It was like the most beautiful.
So beautiful.
And like
the fact that he's still doing classes that's me. That's like,
he keeps his like mind.
I think curiosity is an enormous virtue. I think we should
Absolutely.
encourage everybody, like treat it like a virtue as much as being generous or kind. Like curiosity is so important, and like never assuming you know about yourself or anything, right? Like always being hungry for more stuff. That's like my dream, is like just to take classes.
He's taking religion classes. So he's taken every single, he's learned about every single religion. He like told us all the different theories from different religions about Jesus. It was very interesting. But yeah, and they have cocktail hour every day at 4. And
that's good to know. Guys, I like kind of stopped drinking this year, which has been good for me for now. But I'm like, I don't know. There's something about that I love to hear about, because I think there's something in like ritual that
they have ritual. It's like, and then they sit and they talk and they sit in their chairs and they laugh a lot. And anyways, I don't know.
Do they do physical stuff? Do they have any food secrets that they eat? Anything specifically?
Dude, they eat like microwave shit.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I know. But also you have to remember, like, probably growing up, their food was very different than ours.
I think that probably makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
That's so true.
You know? So,
because I feel like if you think about like any sort of system of structure in like the physical world, like the foundation makes so much of a difference. So maybe you start throwing like cancerous stuff like on your later cells, but like the dense base cells weren't that fucked up.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's easier to deal
It'll
with.
catch up to him when he's like 120.
That's really funny.
Yeah, he still drives too. It's terrifying.
I don't know if there's like a conclusion to these thoughts that are like,
no, because this is the world. This is what we're living in. There's no conclusions. That's why everyone freaks out all the time. There's no definitive answer here other than like try to make the most of what you got.
Yeah. I do believe there is some inherent imperative to be on the side of things that are generative and kind and good. Like I have a weird thing about like what I think God is at this point in my life is like less of a, it's something and even the way they describe it in biblical things or whatever as like it's a mind that we couldn't comprehend. I don't think it's a mind like we have. Like there's no ego attached to it. I think of it more like a force like of like the coefficient of light speed or like gravity or something, like just a rule of the universe, but that favors existence over non-existence. And that like and the proof for me is that things exist because it makes no sense. Like none of this makes any kind of sense, especially in the eternal vastness of the universe, that like this rock, like maybe some alien biology, like, some like organism on a rock fell onto this planet and then like we had oxygen and water. And so it could be a thing. And now we do this. Now we make podcasts. It's like, that is like to me the idea of like the Yahweh Shaitan, like the positive thing, the goodness in the universe is something that is generative and wants more of existence, and that would then correlate with like kindness and generosity, anything that encourages growth, encourages new things, curiosity, whatever, versus the instinct to like stop things, shut things down, move to stasis, turn it all off, and like that's like bad. But that like in the face of like meaningless of like why and what are we doing, and as before the lights just turn off at the end of the movie or whatever, like there's something and I might just be convincing myself so that I feel confident or comfortable or like feel better about there being a meaning, but it does seem to me like encouraging creation, and like somehow that trickles down to me in my mind of like the web of tree of things to like laughter, like making more good things.
That's your religion, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. Do you have like a religion like that?
I think we're probably pretty similar in that way.
Yeah.
I just trying to do good.
Yeah.
And put out good and be kind.
Yeah, that's challenging, huh? With like the YouTube world and stuff sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
What do you feel like you're going to do next with it?
I don't know. I've worked with kids forever.
I know. I was going to say, I mean, whatever. It's hard to make these things like super smooth and I like to, but like, I think that about you. I'm going to say it now on the recording instead of before that. Like, you have always had in my life and in my observations of you from afar, a very like encouraging, supportive energy. And I was thinking that about like, for me personally, like, cause we met on My Music and we just like got along, but then it was that and just an interpersonal quality. But then like I got this job because like at Clever, I've done tons of work with them over the years because of you just saying a nice thing, watching it from afar in public with like all the Shane stuff and things like that. And then like your life, the Princess Party stuff, teaching children about like music, that like there's something in you that protection isn't the right word, but encouragement or nurturing something. I don't know. What is that?
Maybe it is maternal. I have no idea what it is. Maybe we're just meant to do certain things. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's empathy too. I feel like super empathetic.
What do you say more about that, about empathy in your mind, like what that is or why it is or why?
I don't know why it is. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse because I take on people's energies.
Yeah.
So like if you came in here with a weirdo energy, well, you kind of did, but
that's me.
But I like understand that. But like if you came in with a negative, it's really hard for me not to also feel that.
Yeah.
I can like sense it right away and I can feel it. So when someone's hurting and I hurt, which is like kind of like sounds beautiful, but it's also like kind of destructive sometimes for me.
Yes.
So like if I go to an audition and a lot of people are nervous, I'm
Dude.
not only am I nervous for myself, but then I'm picking up on everyone else's.
Well, that enter the YouTube world. I mean, it took me a long, I think because I was just numb out to a lot of my feelings and maybe you have some resonance with that, but like, things like VidCon or things like events of people
Exhausting.
And these things, very tough.
Yeah.
Some of them. And now I can, and that's audition rooms, very hard to go in and like people are like these tumblers, these overfilled glasses that slosh out so hard. It's hard.
It's really hard. So I think maybe some of that like maternal, like trying, like I'm really like concerned for the people that watch my stuff and I want to like help everyone and like I want to teach children and I want to do all that stuff. Like I think that's.
Do you have because I think a lot of people might resonate with that. Like what do you do to protect against that, to maintain empathy, not just turn off, but like to maintain your sense of like boundary or where you are? And
it's really like hippy dippy.
Okay.
So my mom's like best friend is a medium, which means she can like talk to dead people.
Sure.
Which is pretty cool. That's another podcast for another day. Like she's crazy. I've had some crazy experiences with her, but she always told me, and I've heard this from other people, to like envision wrapping yourself in something that feels protective. So like find a color that feels protective. A lot of times they say white. For me, it's like gold and like a fabric that feels, or like some sort of, not fabric, you know what I mean? Like what
material
to visualize. So basically you're like,
okay, got it.
You're visualizing wrapping yourself or your car when you're driving, whatever, or airplane when you take off, in this like wrapping before you step out your door.
Wow.
To sort of like,
that's really good.
It's a shield.
I like that.
To shield yourself.
And it's just like a visualization exercise. You like, and you just like, you picture this thing specifically, color, like material, and then like it's like the
you wrap yourself in this shield or this blanket
thing. You're like, I am in this
and
thing,
you're good to go.
Now.
Yeah,
That's
which
really
is
cool.
like, I don't know, you know, whether you think visualizations work or not, but like,
no, I think they do. I experience it most strongly. The thing that made me think of immediately with jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. I remember I've done a few tournaments this year. It was the first time for like 7 years that I competed again. And I learn a lot about myself and other things. And it's really good for my brain and soul, like to do combat sports. And yeah, you can channel some weird stuff. Like I remember the first one that I did because I just wanted to, I needed it to go well. I think I needed to channel some dark stuff. I needed a win in a kind of a way that the way I visualize it, you turn into a different creature. Like before getting on the mat, I was like, as you step on the mat, I visualize sometimes, I would do this lifting and stuff too sometimes. I'd visualize like turning into a wolf or something. Like I'd visualize like my face getting longer and my teeth getting longer and my higher functioning thinking disappears, but suddenly my smelling and my hearing is better and my feel, all these things. I feel like I get faster and stronger, and I do it. I like picture all of this and it works. And similarly, like sometimes like within that kind of rolling, that kind of like combative state, I've said in tournaments, some stuff sometimes, just visualization in your mind. Sometimes a game of, I just call it denial. Like there's different ways to do jiu-jitsu. My favorite one is just to flow and receive and be like, let's see where we're going and blah, blah, blah. But if you're doing like really hard style sometimes, or if you're in a spot that's like kind of 50-50, you could go like the sweep could work or not, or somebody could choke you out or not. Sometimes like just absolute denial in my mind, going like no, like literally saying no in my mind and like that's not going to work, almost laughing it off. Even if the attempt is very strong, even if there's something very destabilizing happening to you, just going like, that's not going to fucking work on me. Like works. Like suddenly you are stronger. You say no to it. It doesn't work. So like that kind of visualization
You're tricking
stuff,
your brain almost. It's just like, it's another form of self-talk.
100%. I came up with someone when I was a kid. I just thought, and I think this is true, I don't know where it came from, but it was like, I just think greatness is the easiest thing in the world. That's what I would always tell myself. Greatness is the easiest thing in the world. And it was like the weirdness of like, if you sprint or something, you do running sprints, it's like the day that you beat your time by the most you've ever done, the day you like lift a certain amount, like, and you just go like, how long was that? And they tell you, because it felt like nothing. It felt like jogging. The hardest punch you ever throw feels like no effort. Like there's something to like, that when we are less than our greatest, strongest selves, it is actually us putting on, it is like us taking on hindrances. And the more you can, the easier a thing is, the great, you know, like think about like me on stage or something, or performing, like when you act like, or like when you're thinking about it and you're all worried.
Totally.
You know, the days you don't even think about what you're doing, you're like,
yes, 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
When I can like click in and not think about anything else, I fucking nail it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's when you're in your head, which is why auditions are so hard.
Yeah, which is why like you get all these jobs that you don't give a shit about, and then like the thing you love, you can never.
Yeah,
that's like such a hard thing to cultivate, like that ability to be like.
Oh yeah, when they're like, just don't worry. Like all my managers and agents are always just like, just have fun at the audition. And it's like, no, it's not. I can't. I actually can't. I really have a hard time. But then if I book the job and I'm on set, then the pressure's a lot more off.
Well, that's a thing. I think universally true, and I think is really fucked up about the business of acting or whatever, is like the business of being a person or whatever, is like auditioning is not acting, and being good at auditioning is not being good at acting, and vice versa. And just how much better you are when you've got the job, when you're treated. This is again to the thing of like this lie of challenge everybody and then the best will come out in them. It's like, no, believe in people and see what happens. Like if I know I've got the job, I'm working with friends, we're doing a thing, blah, blah, blah. You play. You go, let's try this one. What do you want to try this? Oh, I got really funny. And you're just like,
well, because the confidence is like built in there, and you don't have to like spend all your energy worrying if you're good enough. You're like, oh no, I'm great. Let's do this.
I really love that rapping visualization thing. I think that's so good.
It's awesome. You should.
It's good. It's protective because it's like there's also a thing like armor can be very heavy. Like you know?
That's why it's usually like a white light instead. It's like something that's just like. So I do it every time I get on an airplane.
Really?
Yeah, I wrap that airplane up.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
When I'm on an airplane and I start to get anxious, is I literally think like, well, I'm not going to survive the crash, you know?
I think shit like that all the time.
So,
too.
but it's like helpful to me because I'm like, what is my fear here? Is the fear dying, or is the fear, if the fear is like, I can understand a fear of being like paralyzed from my nose down.
That's
and then
my
being
problem.
trapped.
That's a lack of control. We just took it all the way back. That shit scares me. Like I'm afraid of getting sick and having to be in a hospital. Like I'm afraid of like being out of control of my body in one way or another. You know, like having someone else have to control my body or.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. Maybe this goes to my jiu-jitsu thing too, because that's the whole thing is like control is like control, surrender of control, because it's literally submission grappling. If somebody's choking you out and you can't do anything about it, you have no control of your experience except to tap, to submit to it, and then they let go and you continue on your, whatever, and you get to do it over and over again. And there's something about like learning that like the harder you try to control something you can't control, the more unhappy you be.
Yeah.
Only when you submit to it does it
Yeah.
is there relief.
That shit's hard.
It's hard. It is hard. But I found the reason I like the plain one. It's funny that I just think about it. Like there's a thing in this like Hagakure, which was like this booklet that I guess like a samurai wrote about his like lifestyle as a samurai and the philosophies of samurai. And there's a lot of like, it's a lot of Zen principles, but then put through this weird funnel to this weird like mercenary role in society of like being a warrior. But there's this thing I think about a lot where he goes the daily meditation on one's own death. And they describes visualizing, and then it's very Leviticus, like the different ways like I might die, but like imagining your own death, being like preparing for it, assuming it's already happened, being like getting cut or arrowed or whatever.
Jesus.
And then he's like, because only then are you capable of action. Like if you're trying to preserve this nonsense thing, you can't move forward like freely. And when I'm on a plane and the turbulence starts to get crazy or whatever, I literally go like, well, I'm not going to survive. There's nothing for me to preserve here.
But can't you say that about life in general now?
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Is going like, well, no one gets out alive. So like if I know I'm going to die, then I can just enjoy it like a roller coaster. I can be like, oh, these bumps and turbulence are kind of fun, actually. You know, they're feel that thrill in like my weird organism. Like my butt's clenching up and my guts feel weird because of like this fear. And it becomes like life becomes an amusement park. Like all of your gross and scary and bad feelings can be experienced, you know, maybe along the same lines, but just on different end of the spectrum as joy, as silliness, you know, like, like the idea that like hate and love are close to each other, like the somatic sense of big feeling, whether positive or negative, is not that different. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Like when you get excited, the thrill of someone you love and that kind of like sexy feeling, like, isn't that different from anxiety? You know, like your heart and the tension. And I think it's empowering to be able to like recontextualize your somatic experience. I used to do that with stage fright. I'd be like, well, this stage fright isn't me being debilitatingly afraid. It's adrenaline. It's game time.
That's what they always tell you to do, right?
It's
excitement. Yeah, totally.
Right. I don't know. It worked for me sometimes. Sometimes you don't meet the challenge that day. But
sure.
I don't know. That I just like that. That's like really a nice way to like take control of your like this rapping, this sort of visualizing, this like
we're all gonna die anyways.
We're all gonna fucking die. No one gets out alive. Spoiler alert. Spoiler fucking alert.
Yeah. Oh jeez.
Maybe that's a good segue to like my 6 quick cues. We'll do like our thing. Let me do a pee. I like to do a pee break, and then
I really gotta pee.
And then we'll finish up. Thank you.
Cool.
And we're back on. Okay.
I'm really glad we did a pee break. I was getting nervous there.
I know. It's necessary. It's necessary.
All that LaCroix.
Yeah.
I know it's trendy, but I really do like it.
I love it. I think it's weird that it became so trendy because it's been around like forever.
Yeah. Why is it so trendy?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I also think it is better than the other flavored sparkling waters.
I haven't tried many, but
I have. Although I also like that there's like, you can tell there's different bubble levels in different brands.
Ooh.
Topo Chico is the spiciest of the spicy waters. I call it spicy water now. That's what I call it. Okay. Sparkling water. Spicy water.
Oh.
It's like water, but spicier.
I like sparkly water. Or sparkling
When I was
wine.
a kid, my dad called it power water.
Ooh.
I thought that was funny when I was a kid. Power water.
Power water.
All right, we're going to do the 6 quick cues, which is little cues I ask everybody basically on this pod.
Oh my God.
That gives it some sense of
format
or something like that. All right. Have you ever been diagnosed with any mental illness or disorders or whatever?
Yes.
What do you got?
Oh my God. Boy, do I have a list. One time my therapist, like before anyone told me what was wrong with me, she like started to tell me and she just kept listing things. So I was like, okay, we're good. First it was like generalized anxiety.
Therapist or like a psychiatrist? Therapist.
Okay. First, generalized anxiety, depression, like in college. But now we have nailed it down, folks.
Cool.
It is OCD.
Oh, legit.
Legit.
Wow. What's the difference between that and like, because a lot of people go like, oh, I'm so OCD. I just like things to be, but like, what constitutes having OCD?
Mine's like a thought OCD.
Okay.
And like routine, but see, it all kind of goes together, right?
Okay.
So like I have anxiety.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right.
OCD.
Anxiety. A lot of it is social anxiety, which I told you about. So the OCD sometimes comes in to help deal with the anxiety. So I'm a extreme creature of habit to a point of like, if I don't do my routine, it's really going to fuck me up because my routine keeps me safe and keeps my anxiety at bay. Right. So like those two kind of go hand in hand. I definitely have a little bit of like medical anxiety as well. Medical anxiety, is that what they call it?
Like hypochondria?
No. Yeah. It's more like, yeah, I guess it is. I'm just always worried that like I'm not worried that I'm sick, but I'm always worried that I'm always worried about getting sick, I guess. Yeah, maybe
Interesting.
It is.
Do you get sick a lot?
No. It's more like, it's because I'm worried.
Germaphobe?
I'm worried, a little bit. I'm worried, not like sick, like I'm going to get a cold. I'm worried I'm going to get out of control. Like I'm going to pass out in public. It all like is connected. And I don't know what. I guess I do, but like I don't need to share all that on the podcast.
Does OCD kind of stuff get into like superstition vibes? Like, you know what I'm like, meaning like ritual, like you said, I've got my rhythms, I know that they work. That makes me feel more safe kind of a thing?
I have like a few superstitions, but not like I don't lock the door like a million bajillion times.
Right.
It's just like control. It's just controlling my environment, controlling my, so like, so if my boyfriend plans something with his friends and invites me, it's a little more challenging because I'm not in control of that. And I don't know how that's going to go, right? Like if I plan something, then at least I know like how this is going to go.
Right.
I know it sounds so absurd, but this is just like what I like. This is what I deal with. And this is like, this is my jam.
What helps you? Does it help you like in dealing with it? Has it helped you to like we were talking about that death stuff, right? Like for me, I was like, it helps me to be like, we're all going to fucking die. And once I pass through the barrier, perhaps then the concerns of the mortal coil can be thought of in a different way. If I give up trying to preserve something, but like, does it help you to like, just to lean into ordering your world and environment more? Or like, okay, here's another example. Like I have this ADHD and stuff, and I've been very chaotic my whole life. So I've found in recent history doing some like exercise things that like I'll record all my food like in an app and do things like that like, or I've been making to-do lists every morning, but let's say on the food one, because the food one's more extreme, is like, I could see that being bad for some people.
Yes,
like, especially if I have like, I even think sometimes in the past I've had like disordered eating, not like full on eating disorders, but I just think too much about it, or I always need some system that I'm on.
Yeah, me too.
But I have found it's actually been very calming and empowering to be like, now I'm learning what food science is, like what's in food and what do I eat and da. That like I wouldn't recommend for everybody. Like record all your stuff, but like it's helping me. So I'm asking that, like, for you, like, kind of this trigger warning thing too. Like, for you, does facing the thing that's hard for you by being like,
you gotta push yourself. You got it.
Do you think so? Like with your anxiety stuff.
But I also do think that there's something okay about. I think it's a balance. Like, I do have to push myself, otherwise I will become agoraphobic. Like, quite honestly. But I also think that it's okay to like cancel a plan because you really need to take care of yourself, and this is just not, today is not the day to push myself. You know what I mean? I think it's a balance. And it's also just talking about it helps. Yeah. And then having a partner that you can talk to it, or a friend that you can be open, or a family member, and be like, okay, I'm totally want to do this because I want to be a part. I don't want to miss out, but here's how I'm feeling. Just vocalizing it sometimes helps. Yeah. Sometimes or like having an out plan. Like I have a friend that like has a weird, like, same kind of thing, but she has a weird anxiety about throwing up. Like she's like worried she's going to throw up. This is a common thing. I
think I've heard of this.
It's crazy, right? So it's just like having a plan, like just keep a bag with you. You know, like, or like when I go to the movies, sometimes I get anxious. And so it's like, well, just sitting on the end. Yeah. So I know like if I need to get up and run and do whatever I need to do.
That's so funny. I always had the same, now I don't have it as much. It's funny, airplanes come up again, but I always wanted the aisle seat, and the real answer was I was like, no, this is the combat position. I was like, there's no way I can defend myself or spring into action or do something if something bad happens from the middle or the other seat. Like, think how hard it is to get up to like shuffle past to get to the bathroom.
Totally.
And I was like, here I feel empowered that I won't be so fucking helpless.
It's all about control.
And it's a crazy person thought. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, there's no, you know.
But everyone's got, like, the more people you talk to and the more relationships you've been in. And I just say that because, like, you get to really know someone.
Restaurants. I had the same thing with restaurants. I had to face the door. I didn't. And
that's very common, though.
I've given that one up actually pretty well. Now I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm proud of like the itch in my back of my head is gone more so just because I'm like, I'm living life, you know? And usually
everyone's got these, like, everyone has these things. Just some are like a little bit more like, some people just have it a little bit more, and like that's me.
Yeah. So you said generalized anxiety, OCD, and is that where we stop?
Those are the big social anxiety and OCD are like.
I like what you said. That's interesting about like the moderating, like the behaviors, like kind of like honoring them, knowing when it's important to acknowledge like this is not going to be good for me today to go do this thing.
And stop judging yourself. Like that was the big like breakthrough I had in therapy, where it's like everything I do, I like judge myself, and instead to be like curious about it. Like I'm feeling anxious about this, and I'm fucking mad about it because this, and it's like wait. That's only going to add fuel to the fire. Step back and be like, I'm feeling anxious about this. That's curious. Why am I feeling that?
Yes. Self-inquiry.
Yeah.
I feel like that is kind of universally becoming the answer to almost every problem.
Yeah.
Is like which again, curiosity is a virtue, maybe. Like, so not just outward curiosity. Like when I hear the word curiosity, I think of like going to museums and stuff like that and learning trivia. But like that truly a curiosity about like any reaction you have or feeling you have, going like, why am I doing this? Is this true? What's happening?
Yeah. Is this true? Totally.
I did a lot. I think I got that from my mom later on. I used to joke about it because she's a person.
I have a very big guard dog here.
Yeah, your dog's very helpful and protective, and it's great. Good girl.
Good job.
You did it. Yes.
That final.
I don't know. Whatever. That like inquiry. That's interesting to hear you say that, because that seems like that's coming up a lot. The people who are getting a handle on their stuff are really living in that inquiry
instead of judgment. Be curious.
Instead of that's actually a very good. I've never heard that.
Yeah,
like to
that's
put it
the
in
one
that binary.
Like finally clicked with me. It was
inquiry
like,
versus judgment.
Yeah. Instead of being judgmental, be curious. The word curious,
beautiful. Like
for some reason, like resonated with me. So
I think that's actually. I saw the Mr. Rogers movie recently. I really love. I mean, obviously, it's so good. But one of the things that really blew me away was he describes this experience because he was like worked the child psychologist a lot. He like studied that, some like the biggest one, and that was his thing. It wasn't like an accident. He was like a pastor who became, that was always his thing, working with children. And something that really struck me was like his ability to get inside the mind of like how children receive the world. And one of the things that like early on, like the first season of his show, I didn't even remember this from it, but like a lot of Mr. Rogers, he dealt with like real world fucked up things. Like there was an assassination, like Robert Kennedy got assassinated, and he has this sketch where like one of the puppets, Daniel, the little tiger, who they say was like him. They think that basically, long story short, was like asks what assassination is. Like,
whoa.
And yeah, it's crazy. And then the person's like, have you been hearing that word a lot lately? And they're like, yeah. And they say, well, it's when somebody kills someone, it's a surprise or something like that. And what struck me was the next thing that the puppet says, this child says, is like, that sounds really scary. And the thought that there's not a moral judgment, that like a child doesn't receive the world's morality, that's good or bad. They go like, that's scary or safe, is kind of the vibe. And realizing that we never really shake that. And so having a reaction, instead of having the instinct to, like you said, judgment versus curiosity, judgment inherently places like this civilized human sense of morality and order onto an organic reaction where you go like, I'm going to judge this. Is this good or bad? What is this thing?
Yes.
Instead of having an observation, even like empirical scientific approach, which is just interested in observation. I have a reaction or somebody else does something. And instead of...
It's the tough love.
Like instead of the tough love, right?
Yeah.
We go, why is that? That's interesting. What's that about? That's really cool. All right. I love it. Thanks. I'm actually going to keep that one for a long time. Okay, 2, related to the first question. Have you done any kind of therapy? And also, have you been prescribed or otherwise tried medications or drugs or anything to cope? Like for me, I mean, I just include that because some people, I mean, I think I self-medicated for a long time before I got real medication.
Yeah, totally. You know. I definitely self-medicated. I finally went on medication. I've been on medication now for maybe a year.
Oh, me too.
It for real saved my life. Not
Amazing.
Saved it. I wasn't like in self-harm, but it like gave me life.
Do you have a good psychiatrist, you feel? Pretty
yes.
present?
Yeah. I kind of go to like a little bit of a hippy dippy doctor.
That's great though.
And who's not quick to do medication. And I was resisting for years.
Me too.
Years and years. I mean, I've really tried everything I did. I did all the steps, right? I did everything. But at some point it was just like, I really got close to like not leaving the house. Like really, like I could see where agoraphobia could happen. And I was like, this isn't living. Like everywhere I would go, I would be like, it becomes a physical thing for me, the anxiety, where it's like the room is spinning and my heart is beating. And like, just to go to the mall was like a to do. And like every store I walked in, I was like, ugh, like literally I felt like I was in like a Picasso painting. Like everywhere I go, colors were spinning, especially when I would travel. I mean, God, just was like absurd.
Wow.
Where I was like, I can self-talk all the fuck I want, but like, this is not, you can't live like this. This isn't living. So
There's like a physical thing going on.
oh yeah, I turned physical. So even if I can mentally, like, I got to the point where I was self-aware enough of what was happening, which is half the battle. Because if you don't know what's happening, it's terrifying. But even so, it was like, I'm still having this, like, it's a learned behavior that your body immediately, it's probably from some trauma way back in the, snaps into. So it's just like, this isn't living. I have to do medication. And it like, I'm not like cured. I still have moments where I'll like walk in, like I was in the mall yesterday and I had a moment where I had to be like, okay, I know what this is. This is just a physical reaction. Talk myself through it and like go. So I still I still deal with it, but it cuts the edge off like tremendously, and I could like be a human again.
That's been my experience as well. Very resonant with a lot of that. Different literal things, like meaning like mine was mostly the ADHD stuff and depression stuff, but like the ADHD in particular, I'm still like finding like so important things I want to like reiterate that you said, because I make this point a lot. I like to ask people about their medications because I don't think people talk about medications a lot of the time. They demonize it or they try to sell it to you or whatever. And like you said, I think it's very important. And also probably the medication won't even be that effective if you don't exhaust your inner work first.
Yeah.
Like you don't try.
You have to do both.
Yeah.
You have to do both.
Because now the pill is not a magic bullet. It's definitely made it more I have a friend who said about taking medicine, what it felt like was now you were just able to use the tools that you developed.
Yes, because like I'm saying, I still had to use my tools. But beforehand, I would use my tools and nothing would happen.
Yes.
This is like I used my tools and like...
like when I first took ADD medication, I was like... It was like exactly the same, like, oh my God, a somatic difference that was like so night and day. But then especially as you get on, you're like, okay, well, I still need to live with myself. I still have these thoughts and tendencies. I still need to like, now I'm getting very into like schedules a little bit more and lists. And like when I wake up in the morning, I just make a to-do list.
Yeah.
Like, and it might literally say dishes and, or this one phone call or like.
Yeah, but that I understand. I could see how that would.
Yeah. It just gives me something.
We have like very opposite issues.
Yes.
But we come at it from a very like similar mental.
I wonder that's so, cause I feel like there's something that like our manifestation is opposite. But like the over empathy thing that you described and like a lot of just kind of the way you process and we've always communicated feels very kindred. So
I think
it's
because we're both in our heads a lot and we think about things like ad nauseum, but I think it then...
But there's also like an input that constantly is coming that you can't deny. Like that empathy you're talking about. Like you're constantly feeling.
Processing them differently maybe.
Yeah.
And yours comes out like a whirlwind and mine comes out in...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because I heard somebody say about like ADHD that like, I think they describe it like, it wasn't that you, like a thing happens with ADHD, like even the idea of like what we picture as like somebody hyperactive in adults, especially sometimes like they said a lot, I think it was like a majority of people who have it, you won't even manifest outwardly like, scattered behavior, which I do, but it's they call it internal emotional hyperarousal. So that you are like constantly like life is so fucking big for you that it is like sort of, I mean, the way I've come to interpret and feel it and describe it is like everything gets bogged up at the door, like the doorway is too small and it's like a crowd of people trying to get out at once instead of getting in a nice neat line, and so everything just freezes. But it's just interesting to hear like what you describe and what I experience are both versions of like massive input processing like capability, but then there's like somewhere in the chain there's like a thing that can't do it. There's like a bottleneck.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's weird. Human brains, man.
Yeah.
I also wonder that about like, because of like what are our brains equipped to handle, and like how much of we've added in this like society and people, and
that's kind of a wild.
Like, it's amazing we're doing as well as we are.
Yeah.
But like that, I think it's perfectly understandable, like that everybody's going a little crazy because you're like, there's a lot of new shit
that our brains like
trying to keep up with.
Yeah.
On the heels. Okay, so that was that. That was. Oh, and then hold on. Let me see what my question said, because I feel like I don't know if it's a different question or if it's that one. Oh, and therapy. You did therapy too. You said you go to therapist.
Yeah,
you still go to therapist?
No, right now I'm not. I kind of got to the point. I go in waves, but I got to the point where I was like, I'm actually like really like liking where I am, and I don't have anything right now that I really need to unpack, and I kind of just want to sit with this.
Yes.
You know?
I had that same experience. There was you reach a point where you're like I wonder this about medication sometimes too, is like, I don't know that I'm going to do medicine my whole life. Sometimes I feel like there's aspects of it that are like triage, or that are like to keep you strong enough to start working on some things, and then you can start to take your training wheels off. But if you never had them in the first place, you'd never be able to. But therapy, I think it is important to like, that there is like a very deep importance to reflecting on and dissecting your experience. But at a certain point, you have to go like, okay, and now I'm going to go and do some things with it. That
but be open to like, okay, but like there's no shame in going back if like an issue should arise or a new challenge should arise.
Right.
That like, I don't have the tools to like see.
I I'm going to keep coming back that like, judgment, that curiosity versus judgment is just like, if I have the reaction, like, because that is a failing for me, even deep into like one's process, and I've worked stuff out, that you go like, oh well, fuck, I feel like I gotta go back to therapy, or this isn't where I'm depressed again, what am I doing, oh I'm such a fuck up, oh I thought I was good, failure. And it like makes it worse. But that's because you're instantly in judgment again, instead of going like, oh how interesting, or like, well, I wonder why this is coming back up again, what's different in the input. And it's very funny how much that keeps happening, where like I start to feel shitty again, and I'm like, I don't know why, nothing different. I don't know why this is happening out of nowhere. And then you think about it for like 10 minutes and you're like, oh, well, this is different, and that's kind of a lot, and that's a change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is, I don't know why I can't just remember the sixth question every time. Oh, what's something cheesy that you find inspiring?
So we've talked like a lot of shit about the internet.
Yes.
But there are some great videos out there that really, like the little viral ones that really like, I watched this one the other day, and it was like, or was it on the news? Maybe it was on the news, but it probably is also viral. It's like, there was a race car, or what's the thing where they run into each other? I like don't understand.
Bumper cars?
No, it's like a sport.
Demolition derby?
Yeah, I think it was a demolition thing.
Okay.
And it was like three cars, and they were like ramming into each other, and there was like a guy on the outside that kind of like keeps, I don't know if he was a security guard or whatever. Anyways, at some point a car like went up, and one of the big concrete partitions like fell on this guy on his leg.
Whoa.
And all of a sudden, people started hopping over, like people that were watching, and like everyone like came in to help and move the car. And it was like one of like most inspiring, beautiful things that like humanity exists, even in this like really, that's such a like intense situation with people that just like to see things get fucked up. Like the least likely people, in my opinion, like total judgment call, but like all came together to like help this guy out, and they just kept coming. It was awesome.
That is awesome. That's really good. Yeah, I think that's like in like the incongruous thing about it too. Like you would think, I don't know, like I think I like that about like combat sports. Like it doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes and more often than you'd think, like these two guys are trying to murder each other. Like that's their paid and that's what they do. They train to do. They get in the cage till they fight. And then as soon as one of them's knocked out, the other one's like helping him up and they're like hugging and they're like, that was a really good fight. And like this weirdness of like, sort of like this thing, like all these humans in this thing acknowledge like, yeah, we want to see some shit smash into each other, get broken up. There's some destruction instinct to this that's really fun. But as soon as things get real, everyone's like, whoa, we got to help this guy. That's like, there's almost like a weird, like the whole experience is about an acknowledgement of your humanity and your like togetherness. So like when something bad happens, we all like, that's really beautiful. Oh, I want to back up slightly because I meant to ask this in the therapy question too. Like, do you have any like self-care practices that you recommend or that you like the one you did earlier? I think about the wrapping is really good. But do you have anything like else like that has helped you with like that isn't medication or therapy that are things that you just like to do for the OCD or for anxiety or whatever?
I mean, exercise for me.
Yeah,
a routine, which is like a little counterintuitive to OCD, but like having a routine does help. But like I'm very like anal about doing some form of exercise pretty much every day.
Yeah. Do you like cardio or weights or yoga?
I do
like,
both. I do them all. So
you
like
just like a gym well,
I'll do like spin. I don't like gyms because they like scare me.
No, I totally
they're like so overwhelming.
Yes.
But I do like I do spin class, which is like going to church. Because it's so like you got to stay in the present, otherwise you check out, just like you were saying, and you're like, it's so hard to do unless you're really like present. And I also take a weightlifting class, which is like feels good and empowering, and I'm trying to do some yoga because I know that's good for me. I just started
I'm glad
Pilates.
you do the weights thing too, because I think even in our culture, like I guess it's changing, but I still think there's a prevalent thing of like women aren't taught about strength.
Dude, I feel so powerful when I do it. I love it. And usually a lot of times like it's all women in that class and it's rad. And we're like just like fucking weightlifting and shit.
Yeah.
I love it. I feel great after.
Why? What do you think? I'm just curious like your feelings about like doing strength work.
Why I do it?
Yeah. Or what you feel. I guess I'm mining for something a little bit just because I've been in the physical in the world a lot. Like a common thing still is like, a woman will be presented with like, oh, you should lift some weight. They're like, I don't want to get bulky, or and that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
That drives me nuts.
It drives me nuts from a scientific standpoint, like to try to explain to people.
That's such an old school mentality, and like I'm not even gonna fight people on that because it's just like,
of course, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, so what did you find? Like, I know what I get out of physical activity, but like, I don't know if you could just expand on that a little bit.
I mean, I think it helps like just my energy level, like completely. It turns like any sort of anxiety or like revved upness that isn't positive. Yeah. It like helps kind of like sort that out. And like, I don't know if I guess I'm like proud of myself. I feel proud of myself that like if I like squat more, like I'm like, dude, today I squatted 70. Like I just like feel cool. I don't know. Yeah. I also like see a change in my body, but I think it's just like endorphins. And it just, I feel like icky if I just lay around.
I agree. I think the more like conscious and present you are to with it, the more in touch with it you get with your experience, the more it's hard to like not like it makes your body happy to like like the way it makes a dog happy to run around. Like the body change thing I think is also like good and fine, meaning like it's problematic. I'm gonna keep this forever, man. This is so good. This is such a good paradigm. This imagination or judgment curiosity thing, because like that is I try to explain to people, but that's a great way to put it, is like if you're stuck in a place of judgment with your body and your attachment to it and your sense of like, I'm a good or bad person based on how I look or whatever, that's horrible. That's not going to help anybody in the world. But it is a really delightful like curiosity. Like I delight in like my physical form, knowing and having experience, like I can change it. I can make it, take it this way or that way. And it's just and it's not a good or bad thing. It's a product of what macronutrients and physical demands do you place on it? And it's no longer about like, I'm a piece of shit because I'm my body fat percentage or something like that. It's just like, no, this is this thing that you have some control over if you want to, and some lack of, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's something like much healthier to just like treat it as this like curious little thing you ride around in. Anyway. Okay. Getting to the last couple. Oh, what's something dark about you?
I mean, where do we begin?
Well, what do you want? I mean, you can do whatever you want here. I just think, we spend a lot of time talking about how great we are, how like bright we are, and I think let's normalize a little bit of our darkness, that everyone's got it.
Super dark. I was thinking about this because you sent me this question prior, and I was like, oh God. And I feel like a bunch of things popped into my head. But now the only one I can remember is pretty dark. I have like this ability to like fight with myself. Mm-hmm. So I sometimes lose track of what I really feel versus what I want to feel. Mm-hmm. And it's like a spiral. Like I can't sort the two out. It's very confusing to me.
No, that's very interesting because that's very much, it's weird. Like I think it's about acting sometimes is like, what I was going to say is it's very much pertinent to that question of like the strangeness and potential morality or whatever of the reality TV YouTube thing of what's real, what's not. I'm like, when you're an actor, if you're like a part of acting is like cultivating sociopathy, like cultivating an ability to like, I always say, and I still think it's true, I'm not a good liar because when you're acting, you're not lying. Like, but you can put yourself into a mindset where you're like, I could believe I could be anybody.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
And like if you take that, I think that's a little crazy but then I'm like, is like there's this article about this woman who the scam artist, whatever that was in New York. It was so good, and it was like about this woman who like basically faked being this like jet set bajillionaire and would hang out with all these jet set bajillionaires and like scam them all out of like money here and there, and some of it would be like, but it was like, oh, will you get these hotels for this weekend? Whatever, and I'll meet you out there. And then the people would never ask for it, and they'd be like, well, it was only a few $1,000s, so I just didn't think about it, or whatever. And she's in like Rikers now, but the whole thing was so ambitious and so crazy. And she said basically her whole thing was like, by the end, you kind of felt like maybe she sees the Matrix. She was like, her whole point was like, if other rich people think you're rich too, like they'll like give you money and do all this stuff and whatever. And like that basically like we just tell each other stories and pretend and blah, blah, blah. It's like all kind of pretend.
Right.
And you kind of at the end we're like, I know we're supposed to feel like this woman's like, there's something wrong. She's crazy. But there was an aspect of it where you're just like, how is she that wrong? Like people, like we're all just telling each other stories about who we are and what we are. I don't know. I that's maybe not a very helpful thought. And maybe this is me having the same thing as you, like about like, I can convince myself of things. Like I have to have some grounding to come back to of like, no, this is who I am. This is reality.
So this is where it gets dark.
Yes.
This specific situation. So because of that, I think I've had relationships go on for too long.
Sure.
Because I have convinced myself, I've been confused more so. Mm-hmm. Like I've been confused, like, no, this is what I want. So my last relationship, which was wonderful, and I will never speak poorly about it because I'm very grateful for it. But there was a point in time where this is terrible, but I thought to myself, I was like, if he were to die tomorrow, like, how would I like really feel like behind closed doors? Yeah. Like, would I be like bawling? Would I like not be able to move on? Like, and I was like, meh. Like,
oh man.
I mean, not like so obviously good. I probably, but like I really thought hard about it, and then I was like, this is not the one for me.
But that's real, and I like appreciate that. I mean, I don't think, obviously, I think you'd be very devastated, like a person died.
I'm not like a demon, but like
I'm not like a demon.
Like but I'm sure I would have cried, but like
relief, like a little bit of like, oh well,
yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't have been like the love of my life has like passed away, and like I would have been very upset, as one would be. I hope. But like, it was just like one of those like really like I had to go as dark as humanly possible to be able to like actually see my truth, because I was so good at like, I got so confused in my head because I could.
Because you're like, well, this is what I do now. I love this person.
This is what and this makes sense, and this checks this list, and I'm happy, but I'm not. And then it's like, I'm happy, but like, I think deep down I knew that there was more happiness to be had. This shit's complicated.
My first relationship was like, I was like 16 to 24, and I was like,
damn.
in my head, and now I can recognize that a lot of it, the love was real. I really loved this person, but there was also like I was young and my family was so destabilized that like I was like, I'm gonna recreate that kind of. And I had this weird thing then, just like you made me think of, like these ideas that we have that we convince ourselves of and we can't let go of, where it's like my idea in my head was like my parents are fucked. They made a weird magical agreement when they got married. They tied their souls together, and even though they're getting divorced, when they're dead, they're gonna be in the afterlife together. Like that's how that works. You're fucked. And like this kind of thing that like I had a weird like I was like I love this person who I was in love with. I love them more than and you only love one time. That's how it is. And that like I would and like I think the relationship went like way too long, way past a corrosive, toxic, like not good thing. I was not being a good person and vice versa. I don't know. But like it was like I was just so no, that's who I am. I loved it. And like, if I had admitted that like we had changed or maybe that's not how the world, it would like somehow make the love wasn't real. And it would mean then I wasn't real. And I was a false person. But you just, that thing, that addiction to like convincing yourself of these things that must be true because
because what the fuck are we doing? Because it's also confusing. But if you take it back to the death, like literally that's the most primitive, like that's like the most basic, like if this person died, what would that like
That's
if we
so
die, why, you know what I mean? Like it's so black and white when you really break it down.
Yeah, I have a friend who has a thing about that, about like birthdays, where they're like, if they don't want to go to someone's birthday, that they go like, well, would you go to their funeral? And like, and they're like, well, if you go to their funeral, then you should probably show up for their birthday. And I think that's so funny. But then I'm also, the other side of it is like, yeah, but they only have one funeral, you know, they're a fucking birthday every year. All right. That's also tied into me about the thing of like making it okay for yourself to not do the thing. Like I still have like I still have a weird, like impulsively positive reaction to cancellation in general. I call it like snow day response, where it's like, it doesn't matter what it is. It can be something that I was kind of looking forward to. If suddenly the event is canceled, I'm like, oh, great. Fine. I love that. You know,
always.
Like, there's a joy, the way you described it in high school was like it is fun to go, but it is also fun to not go.
Yes,
and like that reaction about like generally the world. Okay, almost there. What's the last gorgeous thing you saw?
I mean, I think I already told the story and it wasn't like a thing I saw, but I guess I saw it. But he said the thing about my grandpa, like saying he just like was sad he's not ready to die because he's like having such a good time. I think like.
Was that recent?
Yeah. It was like a couple of weeks ago. And then
really
we
nice.
were in the desert in Palm Springs, which was like so fucking hot. But like, it didn't occur to me that like there was going to be mountains there for some reason.
Yeah.
They're so beautiful.
I know.
I like, you're
it's
just
funny you say that because I was recently in Palm Springs also and had the same kind of reaction. We were like at this little inn that we were staying in that was like right up against those mountains.
Where did you stay?
Karakia, I think it's called. Really cute.
Were we there at the same time?
Maybe.
A couple of weeks ago? Was it the weekend?
We might have been.
And it was so hot.
Oh, wait, no, it wasn't. It was 4th of July. It wasn't a weekend for me.
I didn't realize there was mountains. That's so stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
You just think like palm trees and like pool.
We talked about it earlier, I guess, but I'm becoming increasingly like I didn't think I liked the desert. I'm increasingly like really loving the desert.
Yeah, me too.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay. What's my last one? I should know by now. I've done this so many times. Oh, yeah, we're at the final. Okay, yeah, obviously. All right, I have a thing called the Don't Kill Yourself list. I mentioned it earlier. And it's just, I started it in a very dark time in my life where I just like would list things that are, mine always starts with coffee, sandwiches, and lavender soap. And they're just like.
I do love lavender. I use lavender soap. Yeah.
All right, so add stuff to the list. They're usually things that are like accessible, like, just undeniably good things in being aliveness in the three dimensions.
Dogs.
That's a great one.
And like dog kisses, anything dog related. Rain and books and fireplaces and wine and flowers and shitty reality TV and French fries.
French fries are so good. What do you like? What's your ideal French fry?
I love a skinny.
Ooh.
Rosemary, sea salt,
like really
fries.
Skinny, like those shoestring.
I love
ones?
a shoestring. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's
because they're
unique.
crispy.
Yeah.
My
favorite before it was waffle cut.
Oh, we went the opposite.
Well, because I think waffle cut's very crispy because they have a lot of surface crunchy areas. You know.
Yeah.
I'm not really into, well, once in a blue moon, like a steak fry. You know what I mean? Which is like
Once
the
in a while.
opposite
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
the thick.
A sweet potato fry, always a
Sweet
pleasure.
potato fry. Maybe that would be a good new question. What's your ideal fry sitch?
Yeah.
There's this place near where I grew up, was a buffalo wing place called Buffalo Joe's, and they had these things called suicide fries, and they would take waffle cup fries and they'd throw like the buffalo sauce and like this weird cheese, and they'd like, it's that weird like Midwestern like cheese fried cheese that it's like, it's not nacho, it's not like the cheap nacho cheese,
Yeah,
but it's also not like normal cheddar. It's like, it's almost like cream cheese.
Okay.
It like melts really well, but it's still like a sharp cheddar thing. Like if there's a fancier version of like Cheese Whiz, I feel like is like,
Sure.
and it was like the best thing in the world.
Ironic to put the suicide French fry on the don't
That
kill
is
yourself
ironic.
list.
Yeah, suicide fries get to go on.
Or is it unfortunate? I'm not sure.
Man, that's good. I feel like this is good. This is
Are
good.
those good lists?
This is wonderful. That was wonderful. Thank you for being on My Good Bad Brain or joining me.
Thank you for joining me. What a pleasure.
Yeah, I honestly think this is really great. The that fucking Judgment Curiosity paradigm.
Dude,
is
I don't have any
delightful.
tattoos, but if I do get one, it will be curious. I think I would put the word curious on me to remind myself to stay curious.
Yeah.
There's a lot, I looked them up. There's a lot to say stay curious, and that seems a little hokey, but like curious. Also, Alice in Wonderland.
I know.
Whole thing was curious and curiouser.
Curiouser and curiouser.
And that I fucking love.
I find myself saying we are far. I keep saying we are through the looking glass over and over again these days. Just because reality feels so bizarre. We feel so like we are.
Yeah.
Did you ever heard that theory that like, you know, the Large Hadron Collider? Do you know what I'm talking about? Is this thing they developed? They created this thing to like discover the God particle in Switzerland. It's a Large Hadron. It's whatever. It's a scientific. It's a huge.
I for sure thought you were speaking another language for a second.
Okay. So it's like a real thing, and there's a theory. They basically what they were trying to do is smash these particles together to find like some evidence of this theory about the Big Bang. It's called the God particle, the Higgs boson, whatever. I think they did end up finding it, but they do it. It's to find these building blocks of the universe. The way they do it is by basically smashing these particles so powerfully together that they can break them down to their component parts. And so nobody knew it was going to happen when they did that. Where they're like, maybe when we turn it on, we're going to like delete existence, or like,
God.
you know, like maybe we'll make a little black hole over in Switzerland, and then it'll be really bad. Like, because there's always,
but they did it anyway.
But it's the same way that like when the first time do you know, like the first nuclear bomb before they tested it, they were like, we don't know. Like some people were like, we might just set the atmosphere on fire and kill everybody. Like they didn't know it was going to happen.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That makes me nervous.
Science is crazy.
Science.
But apparently, so whatever, when they did that with the CERN thing, so there's this really fun, one of my favorite like little conspiracy theories, because reality feels so crazy right now with like Trump and all the direct, like everything just feels so madness and like makes no sense, up is down. Like there's one conspiracy theory that like when they turned the Higgs boson thing on like a decade and a half ago and did it for the first time, that they bumped us into an alternate timeline. And that like all of reality is like shifting around us to this other timeline, like because of that event.
Oh, dude.
I love it.
I need a drink.
We're all gonna die. All right. Thank you so much. This was delightful, and that's a wrap. We're done now. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Godspeed.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Stay curious.
Thank you for listening to My Good Bad Brain. I'm so glad you're here. That's it. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/mygoodbadbrain. Also review us wherever you find us. You know, doesn't have to be good. I'd prefer it to be good. I just want it to be passionate and true. Okay? Now I feel like I'm going to get bad ones just for a laugh. They will make me laugh. All right. Don't do it, please. I shouldn't reward negative attention. Okay. Bye.